The introduction of Ion Glass has completely changed the Silent meta. Instead of a super defensive game plan, you now require fast damage. In this video, we will be watching the great tier list made by Japanese export, and I will be providing my own perspective on most of the cards on the Silent. Now, let's jump right in.
It is time to update the Silent tier list because it's been entirely too long.
Mine is also entirely too long. That's why I'm just reacting instead of making a new one.
I think for a lot of the top players, and so we have sort of defaulted to just ignoring it. I don't think that's true anymore. So now that there's a lot of new ideas, I feel very differently about the character, and also have some new ideas and some feedback from previous tier lists to go off of. I think we can
new ideas. Okay.
As always with every tier list, I'm just gonna say, don't build your deck based on a tier list. It's meant to be a way to yap and talk about each card and sort of talk about their use cases and when they might be strong or bad. Slay the Spire is just a game where stuff in D tier gets picked over stuff in S tier sometimes. That's just how the game is. The more you learn about the game, the more you recognize when bad stuff is good and when good stuff is bad. As a starting point of reference,
we can 1.5 speed. I've not seen this slider before. I basically never play stuff in 1.5 speed. I'm a one-time speed watcher because I'm not TikTok brain.
You can sort of just pick all the good cards. Getting past that level of gameplay is when you start getting into more fun runs. Let's go ahead and talk about what S tier means. So S tier is essentially almost always positive. I'm going to say like 95+% of the time is good in your deck. Or it serves an irreplaceable function that other cards cannot do, or solves some sort of enemy in the game that the character specifically struggles really hard with. One example would be something that solves the Aeon Glass, or something that solves Act 1 on a character that's like bad in Act 1. Basically an exceptional card. A tier is not always going to be quite that level of power. This could be a card that is sometimes only good early game and not really picked outside of early game, or it could be something that is only really something you want in the end game, might be very bad early, but eventually becomes really good. In general, I would say this is probably a card that is positive in your deck 85% of the time or more.
My tier list vibes is just pick rate.
Not so good or very
like
good. And we will talk about that when it comes
picked
up.
most often.
Cards, I'm going to go ahead and mention
and
when the
goes down from there.
So just
that's like my vibe.
What is being said about the card rather than where it ends up.
The other criteria is too complicated.
Solves a particular problem, or maybe a handful of problems, or maybe it's just like an okay damage card, for example. Something that is maybe not exceptional very frequently, but has really high highs. Maybe also has lows where it's completely useless.
Trying to categorize the tiers is kind of pointless. It's too much.
C is going to be
too much context.
Probably below average, or the majority of the time.
You just like vibe it out.
So less than 50% pick rate, probably.
On average, better it goes
really
higher.
Interactions with maybe relics that make it really good, or other cards that make it really good that are not always in your deck. But if you have like two things together, it can be exceptional. So it does not mean bad, just means picked less often. And again, I think all these letters really represent is how often it ends up in the deck.
Wait, that's what he said.
I don't think there's a perfect way to do a Slay the Spire tier list, but that is how I'm defining it, and we'll go ahead and just move on from there. D is going to be something that is very rarely picked, probably less than 15 or 10% of the time. So not a perfect like graph here, bell curve, I guess. This tier list
just lets you yap about the cards.
Could have very
if you're just looking at the
list,
list,
like the best thing of
it's
all time,
not the point
to pick it, but generally just not all that great. So what happened since last time compared to now? Aeon Glass is in the game. Silent has had a
last time was Aeon Glass
and reworks. As far as this is concerned,
my last Silent tier list was just like block every block card to the S tier and just block.
I will, however, be evaluating and will put cards on the screen.
That was before Aeon Glass.
The beta versions. I will talk about them when they happen. But we will evaluate the cards in the current context of the beta branch.
Now it's
and maybe
different.
I'll do a little bit of back and forth to talk about both as well, main branch and beta branch. I also wanted this time to split things up into different categories. I think it's probably helpful that we do it one, alphabetically, but two, maybe go through all the attacks, all the skills, all the powers separately, so you can sort of compare across categories of cards. Of course, like skills can do damage and attacks can do other things like block or whatever, or draw. They don't always necessarily do the same thing, but I think it could be helpful maybe to see the difference between certain cards together that are more similar in function. It's a lot easier to look at two cards that do very similar things and then say, well, one of these is clearly better than the other. I'm going to be accounting for rarity as well.
Defect, you mean deflect?
Cards that you see very frequently that can solve problems, going to be very good.
We'll get to there when we get there.
If they are doing really well, even if a rare card technically outclasses it, because you're just way less likely to see the rare. And rares also have a lot of opportunity cost. You're seeing them up against other rares very often at the end.
Yeah, usually rares you evaluate against other rares.
And basically every card you pick inside the Spire is always opportunity cost, unless you transform into it. If you're picking against boss cards or cards in a shop, you could be spending your money on something else, or picking a different rare card, or picking another card in your card selection screen in general. So there's a lot of things that can go into it.
I wonder what's the best silent rare for me. Probably After Image.
I'm well aware of this. No one needs to tell me that, and it has been this way forever. But this is a way to organize my thoughts.
Yeah, I think
and
After Image.
Make it more clear, I think, how I feel
about
things.
Adrenaline.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with attacks and just go alphabetically here. We're going to start with Assassinate. So Assassinate says 0 energy, attack, innate, deal 10 damage,
pretty good card.
Vulnerable, exhaust. The upgrade goes
just pretty
to
good card.
more damage, as well as more vulnerable to 2 vuln. This card, you can sort of think about it as backstab. The number is actually lower
Rolling
than backstab
plans,
in terms
you
of
know,
raw
that
damage.
card is
And so
not
if you're
even in
only
my
playing one
brain.
attack, and this is
I
the only
just
attack you're
cannot
playing, and you don't care about
process
the
that
artifact
the
strength at
character
all,
has a
then,
mid.
this is technically worse backstab. I think Assassinate suffers from
In my
one
mind,
thing in
it's not a
particular,
real
which is
card.
that you usually see it at the end of Act 1,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
kinda
already starting to fall off
stupid.
a tiny bit. If you see it inside of Act 1, you're going to be playing attacks alongside it very frequently, and it's going to be very, very strong for you. So I think
It's, like,
Assassinate
fine.
is obviously an exceptional card if you get it early. It can lead to very
Just
explosive
like
ones.
kill, like
Notably
A
combines
tier
well with
probably.
backstab and performs a very important function even in the end game, which makes it fall off less than backstab, which is that it strips artifact.
Yeah,
And
strips for
Aeon Glass, as we
Eon,
all
that's a
know, has
big.
artifact charges that you need to get rid of. Silent relies very heavily on weakness.
Yeah, before
as
Eon
well
Glass,
as block with a piercing whale,
the
or a
artifact
blaze,
rate
or
didn't
any sort of
matter.
other thing. You even need to strip artifact to apply poison, which is actually pretty relevant now. So I think Assassinate, unlike Backstab, kind of retains value throughout the run. You may think that, it just gets out of your hand and it's not so bad. I'm referring to Backstab here. If you exhaust it, but it is one draw that you're not getting into your deck. So if your deck is relying on powers or needs to do something else in order to set up and really function, then these cards can be not very good. I think it is good
Silent
that
has
we're talking about
backup
these two
prep.
cards kind of alongside each other. They are next to each other.
Usually
here.
you
I'm gonna
cannot
go ahead and put Assassinate
spend.
into A.
You don't
If you
have
get it
enough
early,
like
it is
energy to play your turn
exceptionally
one
strong, and again, it
anyways.
doesn't fall off as hard. It's not a card that you always want, especially considering that you're seeing it up
So
against
zero
other
cost
rares.
turn one is pretty
And
good.
if you see a card that solves output, for example, you get a Welly Plans, or you get a Footwork, or you get Fumes, or something else that actually
It's just
scales
like
into a
hallway
fight that can
cards.
solve something for
Yeah,
you.
just hallway cards,
Assassinate's
good.
outclassed. This is front load, first and foremost. Once you play it, it doesn't do anything really the turn after. This is just helping you in the beginning of a
It's
fight,
like an
and after that,
okay
it doesn't do
upgrade.
anything.
You
There's
don't
a
really
lot
have
of
upgrade
spots,
to
especially
spare on the
later the run,
character
where
though.
that is no longer relevant, and it's worth skipping it just to draw one extra card closer to your
If a
power.
card that
So if you don't need front
requires
load,
an
doesn't do
upgrade to
anything,
be
doesn't work
good, I
for
would
A, it's not a necessary
usually
card for
rank
A,
it
but it's
lower,
exceptional at the role it does, which is front load.
which I
Okay.
will get
Next up, we
to.
have Backstab. We did mention this briefly. I think this is
Backstab
not
probably
really
also
changing from last
like
time either.
A
This is probably
tier,
just going
almost
to B
way.
tier as a card that is exceptional early
Card's
and
pretty
falls
good.
off later throughout the run. You're never
It
really
doesn't
seeing
fall
Backstab in
that
Act 3
that bad
and
because
picking it.
there's
You're
like
also
a three
sometimes not picking
scrolls of
Backstab
evil
early
in
game
Act
because it can break
3.
block. It can also break you again from drawing into your powers. And so if your damage
Still
is good
pretty
enough and your
strong
front load is
card.
good enough, say you have some relic that covers front load damage, you may not need a
Yeah, if you have like
There are
the
times
relic
where
support, you don't
basically
need
just say,
it.
is the enemy dead?
but-
I want to be dead on turn 1? Yes or no?
I mean,
If
the
the answer
output's
is yes to
high.
that, you don't need this card. So if you're capable of outputting a decent amount of damage on turn 1 without it, better just to skip it most of the time. I will say that Silent does like these sorts of zero energy innate cards because of Bag of Prep, and so if Backstab was on another character, drawing 4 is really bad. It bricks your block very often. Silent doesn't have this problem, and also suffers from another problem of really being bad at generating energy. I think it's more acceptable for Silent to carry this, and this tends to be positive more often than not, so I'm going to put it into B tier. I think Assassinate is almost always strictly better, even including the opportunity cost of it being a rare card, but it is a little bit closer. I think
Outputting
Assassinate's
A,
probably bottom
Backstab's
right, Backstab is, like, top
kind of
three for
OP.
preference later.
Even
Okay,
in Act
next up, we
3.
have Dagger Spray. 1 energy, deal 4 damage
Dagger
to all
Spray
enemies
is
twice.
kind of shit
Dagger Spray, again,
without
first
the
game is not very
upgrade.
good. In this game, you need AoE a lot more often, and I think inside of
I
Act
think
1,
at this point, the needing AoE thing in this game
again,
is
as you
not
progress throughout the run,
even
you're less likely
that
to make
real.
attacks, and you're more focused on doing some sort of engine
Dagger Spray
with your deck
minus,
to solve output. Like
like,
Dagger Spray inside of
doesn't
Glass or
do
Test Subject is really
anything.
not doing anything for you. You kind of want this in the first act only, and then after that,
It's like
basically
only
never again.
potato, basically.
You also can solve AoE in other ways, and once AoE
I'll put
is
it in
solved
C
even inside
tier.
Act 1, you do not want to pick this up.
Yeah,
So
put it in
I
C
think this
tier.
is similar to Backstab. It's definitely worse than Backstab, just because of the energy cost. And again,
I think
Silent struggles
when the
with
game
energy
first released,
pretty
everyone's
frequently.
like, holy
So I'm
shit,
gonna
there's
throw this in B tier, but
AoE
it's going to be
enemies
bottom,
everywhere.
for
But
sure.
now I don't really care
Okay,
anymore.
Next up, Dagger Throw. 1 energy.
So I
draw
don't
one
really
card
care
to
about the
start
Dagger
deal 9 damage.
Spray.
A couple things since last
Dagger
time.
Sword is pretty
Fly has been
shit.
nerfed pretty hard. A few of these are
this
direct
is like
card
D
nerfs,
tier.
including like damage from say Flick Flack, and a few other things.
Yeah,
The
this thing's
other more important
bad.
thing is that the style of deck that wants to be doing things with Sly is generally a deck that builds very small looping synergies because you need to line up combos. Like Dagger Throw, to be a good card, needs to be lined up with something else. And even then, it is not the best in its class at doing that. To me, Dagger Throw is something I very rarely pick. It is desperation early game damage. If I have not seen
Yeah,
damage,
pretty much.
I will pick this up.
It's
But say, for example, on
desperation.
floor
It's
1,
why energy
it's
9
possible in some maps
damage.
that are not super dangerous and I'm not extremely desperate, or maybe I have a shop early, that I just skip
You
this
want the
card. Lost
acro
against other things I'm
prepared
just
for the
doing everything. I
Sly
don't wanna pay
stuff,
energy for it.
not Dagger Throw.
Because I'm very often not building these small looping decks anymore. I think
Unless
the
you are
introduction of
like
Glass really
floor
makes it
1
hard to do that.
Ricochet
You're gonna
into
have
no
your shuffle
Sly.
kind of
Because
diluted with a bunch
Ricochet
of
can
stance cards,
blind pick,
and
right?
you really need to
Without
have
this
a way of
card.
fixing that problem.
And
Silent
maybe you
discards
can
status isn't
Dagger
fine, but I don't want to
Throw.
pay 1 energy to do that. And
Yeah,
not
why
have
energy
another
9
relevant effect,
sucks.
really. Dealing 9 damage in the end game is not really a relevant effect for 1 energy. So even though it discards a Wither, I just don't really care. I think this card is C tier for me. It is not like a terrible damage common, but it is really
It's a
discard
terrible damage
I don't
common.
think
It's
it
like D
has
tier for
really
me.
a high ceiling. If you want to compare it to other discard cards,
Pretty
they're usually
bad.
just going to be better. And we'll talk about those when we start
I
getting to
like.
skills.
I've
and
never
stuff.
picked this card ever.
Next up, Dash. 2
Oh,
energy.
Dash
gain 10
is
block, deal 10
insane.
damage. 2 energy is a lot for Silent to play. In the first game, this was an exceptional card inside
The
Act
card
1. In
counters
this game, it
Dorito.
doesn't really feel like that's the case. I
Card's
think
pretty
Silent has a lot
good.
of better options compared to this.
Early game
And 2 energy is
blocks
a
a
very steep
lot.
cost to pay.
Pretty good for
something that
every
is
elite
not
fight in the
literally
game.
solving the turn. And I
Games
don't
against
think
the
Dash is
Dorito.
very very often solving the turn. It's a very dense card.
It's a pretty good upgrade too.
And so dense cards can sometimes be a little bit worse in this character than other
characters.
Solid
B
and
tier.
neither member is exceptional for the energy cost. If you only want the damage or you only want
without the Dorito in the game, this is a lot worse.
The thing it is good at doing is doing a little bit of everything and not requiring a lot of draws to do that. Like, of course, I can play 2 defense for 10 block, right? That's fine. Or maybe I can play 2 defense that are like upgraded because I have footwork or whatever and block for more than that. But they do eat draws and you're not always likely to draw them together or whatever. So dash is covering you if you have a density problem in terms of block or damage, but it's not exceptional at doing either. I think there's a lot of other uncommons I would way rather have.
It's like fine.
After about Act 1, it's almost never picked.
I'll pick a lot more than daggers for it.
Which was Inspire 1 and doubled 2-cost cards, is not really in this game. So that hurts dash quite a bit. Snecko is also a relic that is not picked up as often, and especially not on Silent in this game, and that was something that made dash a bit better as well. You also don't see 4th energy nearly as frequently, and don't pick 4th energy nearly as frequently, and that's where dash gets better, because it is much easier to spend 2 energy when you have 4 available instead of just 3. So yeah, to me, Silent does not want this card very often. I think it is probably better than Dagger Throw, especially early, but falls off a bit harder.
I don't really agree.
I just think for
you
what
pick this Act 1,
dash is more relevant for longer.
You like just save a lot of HP loss.
Echoing Slash.
You maybe farm one more elite.
Beta branch to be uncommon.
Well, Echoing Slash on common is kind of illegal.
This
is crazy.
Benefiting thing. Echoing Slash is strictly better. And
not S tier crazy, but it's crazy.
You can see it literally on floor 1 or floor 2.
You can pick dash. It's very good early, but if you are good in front load, you don't need
it.
Once
you have something like this, Dagger Spray never gets in, right? So its existence sort of invalidates another card's existence.
Yeah, Echoing Slash probably A tier.
This card is still probably not S because of its falling off later.
Yeah, not S.
But as far as an AoE option is concerned, this is basically the best, or one of the best.
Yeah, on common Echoing Slash is kind of
potentially be
insane. Like, what the hell is this?
Carrying a bunch of enemies all at once. This can require a bit of planning, sort of similarly to Regent, where you essentially leave an enemy low enough to trigger Echoing Slash and have it pile on a bunch of times in a turn. So it
kind
of a little bit of
destroys Phantasmal Gardeners. Like, holy crap!
Alive for maybe a little bit longer than you need to. You could kill the enemy, but you shouldn't because you know you can draw Echoing Slash next turn. So and so. In my head, this is a very, very strong card, especially at uncommon now, and probably just top of A tier for me.
Yeah,
it was already a very good card.
I don't really
before,
care about ordering within tiers, but
before it was not nearly as
A tier is fair.
If you see this inside of Act 1, it is slammed on sight. Very, very, very strong. Okay, next up, Finisher. 1 energy deals 6 damage to each attack.
Trash.
Finisher works notably with something like Blade Dance.
I don't care, dude. This is like the worst card of all time.
Maybe you can do more with an upgrade. Maybe you have strength.
Even if you have not Phantasmal Killer, Phantom Blade, you don't retain that many shifts.
Very often, you want to be picking up the shift powers. And that makes Finisher.
This is so bad.
You would rather kind of just have 2 leading strikes in your deck
rather
than a leading strike and a Finisher. Because while
it's like D tier for me, honestly.
Into Finisher, 1, you have to draw those 2
I actually do not think I've ever picked this card in this game.
It's just not going to. And 2,
like the situation you're dreaming of that you're desperate for this card just doesn't happen.
If you're drawing with 2 attacks and you're willing to
like you get no shift powers ever and nothing to scale, you need a Finisher. That just doesn't happen.
And I think Silent very often gets to a point where she doesn't want to be playing a whole lot of attacks pretty quickly. Where you can sort of do like a blocking thing with poison for a little bit, and then maybe you're just not playing attacks at all, or you're playing like 1 strike whenever you have excess energy. And this can be worse than a strike if you draw it with no attacks in your hand. So I think Finisher, unfortunately, is pretty bad now, and you just don't need the early game damage like you did Inspire 1 to really need to pick this up. Silent didn't hate this Inspire 1. It was actually quite a decent
Silent like this into Knob, because you're picking all the garbage attacks. The Finisher actually lines up.
So many ways of getting actual damage that we just don't really need.
Now there's no Knob.
So yeah, I think this unfortunately
and no Slime Boss.
Pretty bad now.
Yeah, D tier. Okay.
Want this almost ever. Again, sometimes niche fringe situations, D tier cards can do the thing. It's just not very often. Okay, Flechettes. 1 energy attack, deal 5 damage.
In my opinion, Flechettes go down a lot.
I've mentioned this a few times now, but a 1 damage increase in this from 4 to 5 is pretty significant for this card. And I think
what I've
really
found is, first of all,
multi-hit stuff. You can very often
it's a little sus against Potato.
You might say this is somewhat comparable to Finisher.
It's a little draw dependent, and if you have the infections,
significant difference.
It gets weird.
Drawing with Flechettes are cards you actually want in your deck. Very often attacks become the
Second
worst
of all,
on a character very quickly. Once you reach a critical mass
you're
attack,
picking like 3 leading strikes.
You never want your deck to be drawing all attacks in a turn.
Yeah, you're like picking 3 leading strikes.
Flechettes needs neither. It doesn't need to
play.
So
if you have those, you don't want Flechettes in.
It also doesn't need to be drawing a bunch of cards you don't want in your deck. I think it gets.
Third of all,
it just needs a lot less.
Occupies like the same space as
half your deck.
The 3-cost one, that D cost, and the 0-cost one.
You are about 50-50, right?
The precise
your
cut.
hand is going to be half scales.
Like those 3 cards are kind of the same.
Hand, and Silent has built-in bag of prep, and so very often that can be 3 or.
So I think Flechettes for me has gone down a lot. Of course, if you do not have a lot of attacks, card's good.
And I think the high roll of getting strength or other things that work with
and
this is
short
very good.
mid,
it's also just a
but
really
like you
good
have a
damage
mid
card early game. So it can
it's a decent like enchantment carrier.
Flechettes is often good enough and really warrants not picking other attacks.
Yeah, a lot of the times I just have like 3 leading strikes and I don't want this.
And that is a power that is very
it's like a little situational. It's like probably B tier for me. I don't rely on this card
building
that
a deck
often.
with Flechettes in it kind of enables it to just be better all around. I think for that reason, Flechettes is sort of just A tier for me. I don't, think it's
I don't care about building a deck around
Flechettes
because you need to kill fast against the young glass.
Being an exceptional card is important to know.
And the deck that's like built around Flechettes, unless it's enchanted, it doesn't actually kill that fast. Unless you get like tracking, which is a rare.
Next up, Flick. 1 energy slide.
So for me, Flechettes is a little worse now with the young glass.
Flick unfortunately suffers from this problem that I mentioned before.
Flick sucks ass.
Dagger Spray
it's just like Dagger Spray here, which is
you only have 1 discard card in your starting deck, and because Dagger Throw is not picked very often, and these
yeah,
other
Flick Dagger Spray both like C tier for me. It's kind of bad.
From common to uncommon in the case of acrobatics, you just have less times where this is going to work. Very often, you're just going to be playing this for 7 damage. That in itself is outclassed by Echoing Slash and Dagger Spray. So when you see it like that, it's not going to be all that good for you. Again, you have Survivor.
Yeah, the number here is just too small.
You can get this for 0 energy. But
it's 7 damage. Yeah, it's not 6 damage. It's 7 damage.
But still, it's very likely that those cards don't synergize with this at all. And so if you need AoE, you're going to be playing it for its energy cost, which it is just outclassed if that's the case. So in order to be strong, this needs to have a discard engine. The unfortunate problem with that is that discard decks, as I mentioned earlier, are kind of combo decks and need to draw very specific cards together. The payoff for doing that with Flick is not good enough to warrant it and being that.
Yeah, discard.
So this is very
really just want Ricochet.
It is. I didn't see the other options.
Pretty
and I'll
much.
pick it because I need it. But if I am having a deck that is doing this discard engine thing well, this is not the thing that gets in. For that reason, Flick very easily bottom of C tier here. It does get in sometimes because you just need AoE.
Yeah, I agree.
That's about where it ends. Next up, Grand Finale, 0 energy. Can only be played if there are no cards.
This is like a C tier card. If it works, it's insane. If it doesn't, it doesn't work.
I think,
right?
As a lot of people know, Grand Finale is sort of a card that requires a lot to make work. There's a few things that do make this work.
The payoff
One
is worth
it's really small and has draw cards. So again, this discard sort of engine. Grand Finale is a very good payoff for that. The other thing is that if you have Retain, Grand Finale is much easier to line up. Notably, Well-Laid Plans now has changed to literally just be the effect of Runic Pyramid, which has always made Grand Finale a much better card.
Yeah,
for multiple
very
reasons.
niche.
One, you can sort of just hold the exact number of cards you need in your hand to be able to draw.
I mean, this card is one of those, either it's completely unplayable or it's like the best thing ever,
I need to think about how many cards are in my deck.
But it's just not very often playable.
My deck has 17 cards in it. Because if it does, I draw 7 turn 1, then 5, then another 5, and I can land this naturally about 1/3 of the time. And with other things, it gets easier, right? And sometimes that's the high roll you need to be able to win. Spire is interesting in the way that high rolling 1 fight out of 4 can be all you need. You don't need to high roll every fight. It doesn't need to work all the time.
Grand Finale also works with like Stampede and stuff like that. So if you get like the
or maybe hold a potion,
like
that can snowball.
Event
and so it's difficult to evaluate because I think when people see Grand Finale, they say, "Oh, well, it didn't work in this fight," and that's
it can cheat it out
of a spot where
sometimes.
Very few things can value.
But
Grand
very
Finale is one of those
niche.
cards that can turn a deck that is like almost non-functional, or maybe all it has is Well-Laid Plans and doesn't really have any output, into a deck that can have a lot of output. So I know I just talked about like why Grand Finale can work, and then people are gonna be very shocked where I put this probably. I don't think it's actually a D tier card like it was last time. I also don't think it's like an A tier card or even a B tier card. It's extremely niche that it does the thing.
C
but I do
tier
think
is
people underrate this card pretty heavily. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the most broken thing ever, but it can do a job that's very important. Silent can build a small looping deck and kill Aeon Glass fast enough before the Withers pile up with Grand Finale as the payoff. This is like Flick if it was just insane and did 10x more damage. That's basically what it is. It obviously needs a lot more work than Flick to get working, but if you have, for example, Pyramid or Well-Laid Plans, and you're holding 8 cards in your hand, and you shuffle after playing Grand Finale, you don't have to draw the 8 cards that are in your hand. That means that you can maybe play Grand Finale in the same turn, basically instantly. If your deck is like 15 to 20 cards, and some of those cards are powers, or maybe your Center's Bane exhaust, or something else exhaust, whatever, you can get down to a deck that's really, really small and sort of play Grand Finale looping things, and just kill stuff really, really fast. This was something we did in Spire 1. Again, it was not super frequent that it got into the deck, but when it did, it was very, very strong. And I think
Finale's worse in this game.
That's really all I'm saying. I think this card probably gets picked less often than Flick.
You're more
but in the
desperate in Spire 1 for this kind of things.
What it needs to do. That is all I will really say about Grand Finale. Don't sleep on it. I think every time you see it, you should think about whether or not you can land it.
The number is larger.
It's not going to be correct very often to add it to the deck, but sometimes it is exactly what you need. Next up, we have Leading Strike.
Leading Strike is S tier. This is the best attack on the character.
A little bit less Shiv synergy. You do not get.
It's broken.
But the first hit of Leading Strike.
I'll pick 3 copies.
Synergy space. I think Leading Strike.
Okay, maybe not 3 copies without any powers.
But it is very easy to take this card early game. Without anything else, it just deals 11 damage. And this 11 damage,
like by pick rate, this is like
that makes this very flexible, especially in AoE fights. And it has a very high ceiling of working with a lot.
Yeah, by pick rate, this is up there. But I mean, it's not like after image, but it's kind of broken.
You play 3 attacks in a turn. There's quite a few of those, like Kunai, Shuriken, Ornamental Fan.
If you want to put any attack in S tier, this
card is probably the card I'm most happy to see on floor 1 in terms of attacks, like common attacks, by quite a bit. I think this is just going into S tier. It's
Oh,
weird
wow.
because most attacks fall off very hard.
Wow, that's
Leading
crazy.
strike is really
Pre-watched.
not. And even against Aeon Glass, that sort of like is supposed to punish a bunch of card plays, it's very often that your shivs are just hitting so hard that you want to play it anyways. And very
Yeah,
often
the
a lot of
best
decks will
shiv card.
get
Well, not
cross-class
really.
synergies, either from
We'll
relics,
get to the
ancient
best
relic
shiv
in Act 2,
card
from events,
soon.
from all sorts
In
of
my
things.
opinion.
Shivs have the tendency to sort of just be crazy with every other character's card pool. You can get Dark Embrace, Feel No Pain. You can get regen stuff like Pillar of Creation, Arsenal, right? There's so many cards that just completely break stuff that just makes cards. And cards that exhaust, and cards that hit multiple times. Leading Strike to me is like the epitome of just an attack that does stuff the whole game. And that is not a very common thing. It needs very little to make work and has a super high ceiling.
Yeah, it's a
but basically
common. What do you
never having a
mean?
really bad
It's a
floor as
common
well.
card.
It's just bread and
Of
butter.
course
as
it's
I think
common.
This card is exceptionally good. Next up, Memento Mori. 1 energy, deal 9 damage. Deals 4
Yeah,
additional damage
this
to
is
each card
D
gets
tier.
one
I've
piece.
never picked this card
I
ever in
recently
my
had a Silent
life.
run that played Calculated Gamble into Memento Mori, but the Memento Mori was a transform, and I also had Perfect Fit on it. So I can essentially just wait until I was about to shuffle, use Calc Gamble, discard a huge hand, and then always know I was drawing into Memento Mori. And it was sick. It was like doing 55 damage throughout the entire run, if not more. That is not the average run. The average run has no way of really activating this thing super
I actually
frequently.
think I've
And
never
as I
picked
mentioned
this
earlier,
thing
the discard
in my
package
life.
general is kind of just way worse than it was in release. It's very
Yeah.
often that you're discarding 0 additional cards.
Pretty
Or
horrible
maybe you're
card.
discarding 1. For that reason, I think this card is just not very good. I don't very frequently want to pick a card that says deal 9 damage. It needs to be doing more than that consistently, and it's just not consistent at doing that. This is very much like Finisher, where it lives in sort of this dream world where you want
It's
to have
like
a
the
good combo with
slide
it, and it just
payoff,
doesn't
but you have
very
like
often.
real slide
So,
payoff
unfortunately, I think Memento
instead
Mori is
of
going to be Again,
this
DTR cards are not
garbage.
never. They have their moments. This is just one of those that really doesn't work as often as you need it to in order to justify ever picking it. Maybe early game, if you have like an early prepared, a dagger throw for some reason, maybe an acro, I don't know. You need a lot of stuff for this to be in the deck almost ever. You need to be able to actively proc at least a discard a turn, maybe Tools of the Trade or something. If you have these things, again, discard tends to want to not pick a bunch of attacks and do more powerful things. Maybe you can do reflex tactician stuff or other things. There's another card we're gonna get to in a second that is kind of just this, but a lot better and more consistent. Okay, next up, we have Murder. 3 energy, deal 1 damage, deals 1 additional damage for each card drawn as combat. Murder is essentially
The desperation boss solve. Like you've got to be extremely desperate for
Unfortunately,
this.
I don't think that's very good. There are often other payoffs you can
I
get.
really do not
Sometimes
want
just playing
this.
Leading Strike and playing like 1 or 2 accuracies is
But
way
yeah.
better than this as a looping card. It
Probably just D
costs
tier. If
so
you're
much. And
literally
obviously
dying to
early on
lack of
fights,
rolling, can
this
pick
is
it.
taking a long time to ever be meaningful.
Too
damage.
expensive.
If you have 3 turns without playing draw cards, this does 17 for 3 energy, which is a horrid rate. There is a lot more of cards that
It's
we already talked about here in
realistically
this
it's D
list that
tier.
do more
You're
than
not
for
that desperate.
or even less. Sometimes they're free.
Like
And so this card is
99%
I think
of
it
the
can be
runs.
desperation boss killing if you manage to enchant this with like Tanks'
Yeah,
double
it's pretty
damage
desperate.
enchantment. Sure. It feels to me like that's again living in a very, very fantasy land, but off the nature of Aeon Glass being what it is, sometimes this gets in the end game. If you have Snecko, it can get in, and I think there's something to be said about that. Snecko, this is a
Snecko?
very, very good card.
That's not
because the
real.
cost is randomized and you draw
Not
additional cards
relic
every
isn't
turn if you scale
real.
it faster. So
Okay,
very
it's
quickly
pretty good
becomes
for
a card that just does a lot
Snecko,
of
yeah.
damage for a variable energy cost, which is an average of 1.5 energy. If your card is dealing 50 damage for 1.5 energy, that's pretty good. So I think this gets picked more often than the stuff that's in D tier. It's not completely useless, but to me this is like grand finale tier. It is very, very similar to these cards where sometimes it's exceptionally good.
Actually, I
vast
feel like
majority
we will
of the time
pick
it is completely
this
awful or
similarly
essentially unpickable.
often
That's very
compared to
different
Grand
from fucking
Finale.
Dagger Throw and Dash in
But
this
Grand
tier,
Finale's
but they get
payoff
picked around the same
larger.
amount.
The
It's
large
just they're picked in
Grand
different spots.
Finale
Okay.
just
We're going
does
to
more
neutralize
than
this in the
murder.
base deck, but I will just briefly mention that neutralize is definitely an exceptional
Neutralize
card.
probably
It's very
goes
weakness,
into
it's
S tier,
which also carries a
but
upgrade onto your
it's in,
ancient card if you get that.
yeah,
Or
it's in your
upgrade
base
card, I
deck.
should say rather. Just exceptional card, definitely S tier. Okay, next up, pinpoints. 3 energy, deal 15 damage, cost 1 less energy for each skill. played this turn.
Pinpoint.
This is essentially what I was just talking about with Memento Mori, but just better. It's Memento Mori that essentially
Pinpoint and Flechette are the
Pinpoint is a
same
card that I'm
card.
exceptionally happy to see early. Silent tends to have this problem of
Yeah.
dealing damage while also blocking at the same
Pinpoint
time.
and Flechette
Pinpoint
are the
is letting
same
you
card.
block while also dealing damage.
But
If you
Flechette is
think about, like,
higher
the
ceiling.
Giant head statue instead of Act 1. Something like
But
that
they're
could
pretty
be blocked,
similar.
right? If you have a footwork plus and you play 3
If you
turns
don't
in
get
turn,
the
you're
strength
essentially
of the
blocking that
enchantment,
fight forever
then
with your moves.
Flechette and
That's great,
Pinpoint
Paul,
are
but how are you
basically
doing it?
the same.
You essentially can't make any progress if you're just playing defends or backflips or whatever. Here comes Pinpoint. And this is a card that allows you to make progress while also just sort of sitting
Yeah,
around
you just
blocking.
block
doing
and
things
play
you wanna do anyways.
this.
It allows you to play it backflip in your hand and not feel bad
Quite
about it.
good for
Silent is just a very energy starved character. And you can also work
giant
really nicely
statue
with
in
Prepare, which is zero
particular.
energy. It allows you to discount this for free, and Prepared is arguably one of the better skills to be picking up speculatively, especially inside of the discard package.
Later
So I think
on, it
Pinpoint
falls
dealt
off
with
quite
that
hard
nerfs a while ago.
because
It's
it
been a long
doesn't
time since I've been
scale,
Silent Tierlist, so
but
I'm
early
briefly
game
mention
is
that for anyone
sick.
who was not aware of that, but this
Yeah,
is
the
still
Act
2
1
damage
demon.
and got nerfed. I think this is still just an A tier card. Probably over Flechettes.
Probably I will move
This is just a bit
Pinpoint
easier
and
to get
Flechettes to
working,
B.
and probably stronger early. It's just going to be doing
Yeah,
more
I'll
damage
move
sooner.
Pinpoint and Flechettes to
at the
B.
end game is almost always
They
going to be
feel
better,
a bit out of
that's
place
fine. When you're
compared
picking these cards,
to
they're
Echoing
often
Slash and
positive early game when
Assassinate.
you want them, and Flechettes tends to scale better into the end game, but Pinpoint is a stronger early game card, and that's what's getting picked for. So in the role that these are both being early game damage cards, Pinpoint is better. Very exciting.
Yeah, and they are way better than Dagger
Next up we
Spray,
have
so Dagger
Poison
Spray
Stab.
should also go
One
down.
energy
That's my
attack, deals 6
opinion.
damage, apply
Poison
3
Stab's
poison.
like
Easy
kind
to
of
read
bad.
as a card that deals 9 damage, then 11.
Probably just like
then
C
12.
tier.
So over a couple turns, this deals
It's a
pretty
poison
respectable
starter,
damage.
but
It's
like who
basically
cares?
comparable to Shiv generating cards in that way. But the Shiv cards, I think, just have much better.
And even if you are
synergy
playing
spaces
poison,
that
you
work
don't
with
want to
them,
play
as well
Poison
as being on
Stab.
the
You
turn
want
that you play
better
them.
poison
I
cards
will say the
than
one thing
this.
Poison Stab has the Shiv cards don't is that
It's
strip
better
damage.
than the
As mentioned
D-tier
earlier, this is
attacks
pretty
early
important and
game,
relevant in this game,
right?
but unfortunately, I don't think that's enough. There's other cards that it is better.
Oh, it's pretty
And
bad.
with
It's
the
pretty
recent
down
rework
there.
of a lot of Silence Poison package.
Just like C
This card
tier,
doesn't really
I
feel
think.
necessary. Catalyst was a big reason why having some random poison in your deck was more okay. Accelerant is not really that. It's just not doing it as well as Catalyst is. And you
I
don't
think
really benefit from
Accelerant
having
is
minimal
pretty
amounts of
good.
poison that can be amplified.
Yeah, I think Accelerant
really
is pretty
really
good,
stacked. So
but
it can
yeah,
be
it's
like
not
a decent early game
Catalyst.
card that you pick up because you need damage.
Also,
I think within
Accelerant
the first
Poison
couple of
Stab
floors, I'm not
works
happy to pick it up,
pretty
but I will
poorly
with
together.
enough frequency that it gets in inside of some runs. I will say that's like probably under 25%, probably even less than that. So this, by definition of what I said earlier, is just a C tier card. I'm gonna put it roughly around Flick Flack.
It's like bottom
think
of
these are
C.
all sort
It's
of
picked
cards
more
here
often than
in
the
this little
finisher
common
garbage,
attack
but it's pretty
area
bad.
of C tier that just sometimes get in because you're desperate. That's fine for them to be here.
Yeah, it's
I
like
don't think they need to do
desperation,
much more than that.
basically.
You definitely need these kinds of cards in the pool. They have some things that can make them better, like for example, if you have Snecko Skull.
Or
Poison
like
Stab
if you
is a lot better,
transform
and it
into
comes
like
upgraded, it does a lot
if you
more damage,
transform
like
into
poison upgrades,
Bubble,
having one number of poison is very relevant because the damage numbers go up by a lot.
Then
more
you can pick a
when,
P-stab.
Poison's involved. It is
Then it's
important to look out for
reasonable,
that,
right?
But it's not something that I want to be picking in the endgame almost
But yeah,
ever.
it's a pretty
really
terrible
poor.
card
It
in
gets picked inside
general.
of, like Act 2 and 3,
These
and
kind
then
of
if you very
garbage
much
attacks are
and I'm
just a
desperate to get
lot
inside of Act
worse
1 to
in
pick
this
those things, It's just
game
not a card I'm happy to see almost ever.
because
Next
Aqua
up,
pressure
Pounce,
just
200
way
deal 14
lower.
damage. Next go you play cost 0.
Pounce is
very often
Pounce
reads
is
1 energy
broken.
because you can basically think of this as play Pounce and then play skill. They cost 1 energy like
Yeah,
defend or
Pal
backflip or
Snake
something.
Fight is
And
like
1 energy deal 14 is very
actually the
respectable.
Giga
It also has
combo.
some other
Not even
interactions like Pounce
meme.
Nightmare to
It's
discount
just
very
good.
expensive skills. That can be pretty cool. I think overall this is just a card I'm happier to pick up than a lot of these common attacks that I've just briefly mentioned.
Yeah,
And
it's
definitely something I'm
better
more happy
than
to
the
pick up
common
than
attack
something, for example,
garbage.
like Dagger
It's
Spray. So I'm gonna put it in B
definitely
tier. I don't think it ever really
way
scales
better
anything
than
super
Dagger
well.
Spray.
Even if it's just a free card in the endgame, -1 draw is not really
Yeah, it's way better than
like I
Dagger
mentioned earlier,
Spray.
Backstab sometimes it's not a good card in the endgame, and that's basically always free, right? Unless you have Snecko.
Dagger
And while
Spray,
Pounce does
Dagger
slightly more
Spray should
damage,
go
it's just
down.
not gonna be free
And
as often as
Pounce,
Backstab is for obvious
Pinpoint,
reasons.
Flechettes kind
Maybe a
of
Snecko,
they're
better,
kind of like
but
the
again,
same
thinking Snecko
cards
is
in
not
early
very good,
game. Just
and you very rarely want it.
early game
Sometimes you can
output.
be, quote unquote forced into it if your other options are really bad, which does happen more often now with the Dark changes. You do see
And now you
some kind
have
of
more
garbage
2
energy
cost
relics
skills
alongside
you
it
want to
more
pick,
often
like
now,
the
so
new
you can be
Crippling
forced to,
Cloud
or not
and like the
forced, but
3 cost
incentivized
poison
to pick
skill.
Snecko, I should say.
So Pounce probably got a
Pounce
little
is
bit better.
Decent floor,
in the
decent ceiling.
little-
I don't think everyone's
in the last
super
patch.
exceptional in either, even when it's discounted something like Nightmare.
But it has always
It's
been
basically
good.
like
And the
getting a free
upgrade's
card and
crazy.
1 energy
Upgrades to
extra,
20 is a
off of,
plus
like,
6
playing Nightmare,
upgrade.
and Nightmare's not something I'm doing very often. So
It's like
yeah, it doesn't have
effectively a
crazy ceiling.
1
I think by definition,
energy
this is something I'm happy
card
to
that
see
has a
that
plus
one
6
falls off pretty
upgrade.
quickly and doesn't get picked up later in the run very often. Next up, Precise Cut. 0 energy, deal 13.
Yeah,
This goes
again,
down for each other card in your
same
hand.
card
It's pretty easy
as
to dump 3 cards
Pinpoint,
You're not
Precise
playing draw
Cut,
cards. You're
Flechettes.
just playing
They're
with
the
strikes
same
and
card.
defense. This very often just
I just
means that
lump
you're
them
playing
together.
this with 1 card in your hand, 1 other card. And so it deals 11 for 0, which is pretty good. That's very comparable to Backstab. Obviously, you can loop it, like it does an Exhaust, and you can play it for the full damage, especially
Awful
Survivor,
card with
Pair,
a
or other
mid,
cards
which
like
is kind of
discard cards.
funny.
I would say most often you can read this as 0 energy, deal 11 now. It's pretty comparable to Backstab. I think Backstab has a very notable power differential in that it's always drawn on turn 1, and it's very often that you do want front load on turn 1 to kill an enemy and wipe off some sort of AoE fight.
Yeah,
right? Like, get one
Pinpoint,
minion off the
Flechettes,
screen or
Precise
something to
Cut
stabilize
are
fights.
very
Precise Cut's
similar.
not doing that job nearly as well as Backstab, and so I think
Flechettes has the high roll potential, but I don't
be convinced to put this over
put
Dagger
too
Spray.
much stock
Maybe over
into
top,
that.
but definitely not over Backstab. I think the ceiling of this card is just not nearly as good as Backstab. When you do not want Backstab anymore, it does Exhaust, and that's really important in the end game if you're ever seeing your second draw cycle, is that you don't just draw a bunch of attacks. Again, attacks become the worst cards very quickly, and while we're going through all of them, I think it's very important to look at these cards and then realize that it's not something you want to be redrawing very often, or not something you want to be drawing in the end game especially. Okay, next up, Predator. 2 energy, deal 15 damage, next turn, draw 2 cards.
This
is the uncommon,
card-
is now common, which I think Silent getting a common card that reads deal 15 damage and draw a bunch next turn.
Yeah,
is
this
very
card
strong.
unupgraded,
This
pretty
card definitely got
sad.
better, because now it is something you pick up on early floors and you're very happy to see.
Yeah,
and even in the end,
unupgraded,
it is not
pretty
completely
sad.
useless.
First
Random Snecko's a
3
consideration here.
floors,
Liquid Memories,
you can
potions,
pick
discount
it.
cards, things like like this.
Yeah,
Energy
the
potions
first
for
3
your mind
floors
max
you can
with
pick
this
it.
on the turn that you play it, and also on the turn afterwards.
But if
after you play it.
you
And it can just allow
are
you to
out
push
of the
damage in
very
relatively
early
ways.
game,
Inside of a lot
and
of
if
fights, that's
it's
gonna punish
not
you for
upgraded, I
killing
don't
quickly
really
the
want
turns
it.
that you not only
Silent
damage, but it's allowing you to
doesn't
drop
really
back
make
into
energy.
good damage faster and kind of draw through the block cards that are not relevant. Again, I'm gonna mention
And
the
you are
giant
picking
statue
every
instead of
backflip.
Act 1, but also like the frog
Pretty
parasite that
much.
you really need to kill quickly and takes turns off.
So I don't actually
Predator's a
like
card
it
that is
too
very
much.
good
It's
when
like a
it takes turn
B
off
tier
because it's
card,
very effective because
basically.
their next turn is very scary, and playing Predator allows you to set up for your next turn. Spire is very important to recognize these concepts of playing a turn where you set up and then a next turn where you need a lot of output. A lot of people, I think, don't value these sorts of effects very highly, but Predator honestly would be a worse card if it said draw 2 cards this turn rather than drawing next turn, because you don't have the energy to spend. After
I mean, draw next turn is good, but 2 energy, 15 just
energy on and not be able to do that.
It's bad.
So it's kind of nicer to see all your options at the start of the turn when you have all your energy and can make a better decision or a more informed decision rather than draw the 2 cards and then only have 1 energy left to play. So I think Predator is something I'm extremely happy to see inside of early game. It kind of falls in the same category as Flechettes and Pinpoint to me, and notably does work okay with Flechettes. If you see like Predator and Flechettes on floor 1 and 2 in either order, it's kind of just good, and then your damage is sort of solved for the early game. I think I will put this over Flechettes just off the nature of it being a common card and it being something you pick up very often inside of early game. Obviously, in the end game, it sort of falls off pretty hard. Another example of why Leading Strike is so high up on here is it's just a common card and it solves problems for you.
Predator is less output than Pinpoint and Precise
Card. Doing a huge role like that, it's getting a huge bump on this list for me. Okay, next up, Ricochet, 2 energy, slide.
Ricochet is like the only good slide card.
This card you can just play.
Yeah, it's like the only good slide card.
It's acceptable sometimes, and notably multi-attacks.
Just because enchantments goes crazy here, strength also goes pretty crazy.
Or strength, or an enchantment, or whatever. There's a lot of things in this game that work really nicely with those multi-attacks. And
probably still like B tier though, because if you don't hit the high rolls, it's like whatever.
It doesn't mean it's always going to play for 0. You need to think about the turns where it doesn't do that.
It's good with prep time.
And could be very
it's also good with prep time.
If you get sort of these high rolls, which again, I do want to point out.
You can just like prep time Ricochet for your
from seeing something broken.
For the entirety of your damage for a long time.
Sort of fixes the run.
It's a solid thing.
If you're 2 or 3 cards away,
but yeah, it does require the synergies to be super good.
It's a lot harder to piece together.
Otherwise, it's like fine.
Ricochet can very often be the thing that's like 1 thing away. You see 1 more relic.
It lets you pick an acro, basically.
Super good. As a common card, I think it
lets you pick a prepared.
This is B tier, but probably towards the top.
I like it. I mean, I like it more than Predator. So probably you'll swap it with Predator.
Reframe the tiers here. But I think it's okay if Assassinate and Backstab are in the
same I will move all these attacks to B tier.
Better than Flechettes on like floor 1. I would probably pick both on floor 1, but Backstab with more frequency.
Besides like the Assassinate and Echoing Slash.
I will move it over Pred, I think. But Predator definitely deserves to be talked about since it is a common now and you see it so often to keep like a ranking here. I don't think it should be bumped down to B with the rest of these cards. It kind of has a higher floor than Ricochet does, Predator, but a lower ceiling. However, inside of early game, I don't think I very often care as much about that. That's usually a bonus. Like it's tacked on as like maybe it can be broken later. I usually care more about how well does it perform with like nothing else in the deck when I see it on floor 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that. And that is weighing more heavily into my evaluations, I think. Okay, next up, Skewer, X-Toss,
complete garbage, holy crap.
24 damage, pretty
it's
easy to
buffed
here.
compared to Spiral 1,
but I think overall, this is really just a dense card that gets picked up inside of early game. And
yeah, it's like if you have literally no damage cards, you can pick it.
If you're picking Chemex because you have like a malaise or something that you're going to be doing with it.
Or if you have Chemex, then it's actually good.
By a lot of shift cards, for example, like Leading
Strike. D tier. It's like the Chemex only card.
This is similar to Dash in my head.
That's a lot worse than Dash, holy crap.
Very quickly, it gets.
It's like so much worse than Dash.
It would basically have to come green or have some additional synergies to warrant it. And instead of early
like if you actually pick Dash, you notice how much HP you're saving like one. And against the Dorito.
Scale in the same way that something like Flechettes does.
Skewer.
In terms of being a multi-hit card, there's a couple multi-hit cards, and I think you just don't need very much to make Skewer work.
Skewer.
Do as much as like a Ricochet that's been enchanted, or a Ricochet that's played for 0, or a Flechettes that's being played alongside 4 or 5 skills, right? And so the high roll is just not.
Yeah, Eradicate at home.
Silent doesn't really make a lot of energy, and so these X-Cost cards need to have high impact even when played for low cost, and notably Skewer doesn't do anything at 0 energy, even when upgraded, and at 1 is just a really mediocre attack. So you need to have, for example, trouble against killing like one enemy in an AoE fight. Say, for example, the eels inside of Act 1 that I want to burst one down. Skewer can do that very well, especially with potion support like an explosive pod or something, because the shield
is all the best early game attacks. It's pretty good.
Chip, like 1 strike.
I'd rather have Leading Strike, but it's pretty good.
So it can do good stuff. Can also play it for 0, I guess, to
I'd rather have like Echoing Slash,
Ornamental Fan, and things like this.
Stuff like that.
So it can do things. Playing it for 0 is a real thing, so it has some extra utility, but it's just not got all that great of a ceiling. Okay, next up, Slice, 0 energy, deal 6 damage. A very, very simple card. I think Silent has better things than this for the most part.
Slice is basically like if you pick like freaking 5 acros and nothing, you can pick a Slice.
Silent can often sit around and sort of just block fights.
It also plays decently with Predator.
That can be Fumes, right? That can even be like playing Neutralize. I distinctly remember.
Otherwise, not a great card,
but elite damage.
0 cost on the no energy character isn't so bad.
Back of a Transform into Nightmare early, I didn't really pick that. Slice
just like C tier
the deck if you just don't have anything else really, and you see it up against like
it's just a C tier card.
I'm probably picking this more often than most of the C tier stuff, so I could definitely see it being like in C tier.
I'm picking it more than the dagger throw and whatever garbage.
Can't help you do something. It's just not impactful enough of a draw, especially later.
Why would you pick Slice if you already have Predator? Predator itself doesn't do it though.
0 energy, so you can sort of just play it, but that's often not good enough to.
Predator by itself, especially if not upgraded, doesn't really do enough.
He loses 2 HP. This is sort of like Leading Strike if it was
So
bad. How often can you really
Slice plays with Predator if you draw it on the same turn,
That's really
because Predator is expensive.
And in that case,
It also plays on the turn you draw additional cards because it's 0 cost.
Strangle is just not that. It doesn't have the ceiling that the shift cards do.
But
I think notably
it's pretty bad.
Artifact, but most of the time, at best, this is like 12.
Most attacks are bad.
It's just not as good
Big
as a lot
shocking
of cards
news.
doing this, but with less conditions and have a higher ceiling. Kind of just definition of C tier for me. It's
Strangle is like the Phantasmal Gardener technology because it goes through the block.
And call it a day without much explanation.
Yeah,
it's a very simple card.
Not good.
Compared to Blade Dance, and you will see,
Not
or
good.
Leading Strike or whatever, that it's just not doing very good. Next up, Sucker Punch, 1 energy, attack, deal 8 damage, apply 1 weak. Silent does appreciate having weak chain on the enemy. You can sort of count the number of cards in your deck. Earlier I mentioned with Grand Finale, like counting 17
weak.
cards.
If you need more, you can pick it.
Right. If you have a 3-turn deck where it takes 3 turns to cycle through the whole thing, neutralize even while green only lasts 2. And so you will essentially never have a weak chain or permanent weakness on the enemy without
pretty good. This is the worst weakness card though.
Is kind of the worst one. That doesn't mean that it's a bad
What the
card,
hell? This
but
guy's
it's
copying what I'm
so very
saying.
quickly, when you have weakness from other places, Sucker Punch just no longer gets in. It's not really relevant in terms of dealing damage. It is really picked for the weakness, and the upgrade is solid. It just goes up a turn in weakness, but can become very, very irrelevant extremely quickly, especially with something like Suppress, which is just upgrade to neutralize, and you never really need to pick
Also, Artifact Strip.
except in the case of like
Artifact Strip for Young Glass
this
if you really need it.
That's
probably B tier.
We can go ahead and just give the weakness.
Has more utility than the other garbages here.
I don't think it's really necessarily solving a lot of problems for you, but it is.
I like Dash and Sucker Punch way more than the other crap here.
Incomplete.
Like not even close.
Okay. We will briefly talk about Suppress.
Suppress broken,
yeah. But it is not inside of the regular card pool and replaces Neutralize. The upgrade being notably extremely powerful, guaranteeing turn 1 weak, and works really well with something like Assassinate. You can actually just use
everything comes to Young Glass because that's the hardest boss in the game.
I think Suppress is quite strong. I'm not going to put it on the tier list because it's not in the card pool, but
also Suppress kind of sucks against Young Glass, which is funny.
Okay, next up, the Hunt. Artifact. Deal 10 damage if fatal, gain an additional card.
The Hunt.
Few things are better in this game than just seeing more cards. It's a card game. You just
Hunt is good.
Cards, right, that makes a lot of sense.
It's annoying. Also, if you get Act 2, it's a little late. Act 1, very good.
Into late game strength. You are able to block fights, and so now you can play the Hunt with some reliability and just always see the good card rewards.
Yeah.
And if you always are just seeing good card rewards because you're seeing a ton of card
I think it can go to S tier. I can see it on A tier though.
Even if you cannot land this every fight.
Yeah, I can see it in A tier because it's not like
card rewards out of this thing inside of an act.
Like if you see Hunt and like
has a really broken interaction
broken S tier card,
get the kill in a boss with Hunt, and it can often be
you pick the broken S tier card. Like you see Hunt Adrenaline, you just pick Adrenaline all of the time
because you're just getting an entire extra rare.
Which is weird, right?
This also can work with relics, like stuff that gives you.
Being a vacuum is broken because it's good to see more card rewards.
Become exceptionally broken, but even at its floor, it's just extremely, extremely good. This is very easily S tier. We will put this up for Leading Strike. I think it's
not sure about
really
the very easily.
While just seeing more card rewards is
it's
really
pretty strong.
Maybe
It's pretty strong.
What you'll notice here, I think, is that most attacks are just not very good.
You get this from Niao, I mean,
you need to pick them, but they are not going to be solving your runs for you most of the time. They are cards that you pick because you need to pick them and not cards that you pick because you want to pick them. Basically, every deck, if it was allowed to skip every attack, it probably would. You could construct a deck that does very broken things.
Would I pick Hunt over Assassinate and the back one?
Just very often they do not become relevant.
Very often, yes.
Which is why they kind of, with this.
So I guess it's better than Assassinate. Then it can be like in S tier.
Let's move on to skills now. So first up is Acrobatics, a very beloved card. It was recently changed from common to uncommon. It says 1 energy, draw 3 cards, discard.
Acro, good card.
Acro at
like not the best card, but it's good.
Different purpose.
It's good.
And I think it does at uncommon. They obviously do the same thing, but the frequency
still triggers your slide stuff, card draw good.
I will just say that Acro and Prepared are probably the two best
discards, your withers
in the game, aside from a few other
like A tier.
A tier cards. Things that are repeatable, I should say. They're the easiest way to actually.
I think S tier should be like the actual broken shit, like Adrenaline.
It being uncommon makes the entire package worse because of the nature of discard being a combo-oriented style. You need to reliably find part B with part A. And very
also,
often,
if there's a new energy generation card, the 0-cost energy gen stuff, that goes pretty well with Acro.
Good cards. Nothing about that has changed. But the fact that you have to see an uncommon now, or like at least one of the cards that was core to this identity, is now uncommon.
Because
a lot less
like Ricochet gets clicked,
and so while the card
because it's common
really, really
and it's fine
at doing that exact niche, I think
they
it
just
comes together
pick Acro
far too
that you're
infrequently now
chilling.
to really set out on a run and start speculatively picking
very easy combo to put together. You don't need to go all in.
I think if you try to like force discard, which is something we could actually do in the early patches of the game and inside of Spire 1, but there's been a lot of changes to Sly, and I think overall the whole package has just been nerfed too much to really care that much. Silent in general.
I don't
really
agree. If you see the cards, Sly is still
not
good.
That great.
By that I mean Prepare Reflex, Hack Dashing Acro,
whatever other card game. You probably look at like draw 3 cards and you go.
But very difficult to see them now because Acro is uncommon. So you
And
see
that just says,
Acro last
we're gonna put
Act
two back on
1,
top.
then you don't get
This
to
is
pick,
better than that even, but
pick
I think
your
that the
Reflex
context
or
of Slay the
Tactician.
Spire is really that you draw 5 cards.
So
in
it's just
turn,
less
and Magic can draw
consistent
1
to
or
put them
Ripbound or whatever.
together.
Whatever card you want to compare to. Most of these games,
But
you
if you
draw
can
one
put them
card per turn. And so draw
together,
effects are
it's
very powerful in those games. And Slay the
it's
Spire,
good.
you just pass your turn, you draw 5 cards. It makes it
Even with
way
Young
worse
Gods
to
in the
just draw
game,
your
it's
deck,
still
especially
good.
because there are often cards that you cannot miss, and you discard your hand at the end of your turn. So the evaluation of draw going from game to game can be kind of misleading for a lot of people, I think. If you cannot actually spend your energy efficiently and you're like drawing into powers, and let's say you want to play multiple powers and the cards that you draw,
Acro should go back to common.
very often only ever has 3
No.
you often just miss.
I think Acro back to common might be a little too good.
The slide package is worse, means I just pick it less. Like against other cards now, Acro is not always just a slam dunk. Even if I see it super early, I mean, especially if I see it super early, it's not really a good card. Early on in the run, you're just drawing into strikes and defense with it.
Yeah,
so
Acro's decent out on common.
You're just drawing into more stuff. But if you're not actually trying to draw into anything or combo off at all, you're not really going to get much out of it. The upgrade is really strong. 1 extra card is very powerful when you're discarding 1 card, and very often if you're playing Acro, you want to do something like Acro into Flechettes. Having more cards in hand means that combo lands more often, and the reason for picking Acro is, again, these like sort of combo ideas. So if you're playing this with like Corrosive Wave or Calculated Gamble or whatever it is,
Corrosive Wave sucks dog shit. Yeah, I guess we will get there soon.
I don't think it is quite as good, and it's not as universal as it was. I am going to put it, I think, roughly here, above Pinpoint, below Assassinate. And that may come as a surprise, but I think just the whole package.
I think I probably pick Acro more than Pinpoint, maybe.
The nuances around acrobatics mean that it's lower for me. And we can talk more about that as we get to more and more of the slide cards and brush on the changes that those have had, and also the impact that something like Anaglas has had, which I've already mentioned earlier in this video. Okay, next up, Adrenaline, 0 energy, skill, gain
broken,
energy, draw 2 cards, exhaust. Broken energy on this. I don't need to explain this, right? This is just one of the best cards in the character, very clearly. Over skip, it's basically always added unless you have Snecko, and even then it probably is still added. Essentially almost never negative. I think the only time you could say it's even remotely negative is like against Anaglas.
You wouldn't pick Corrosive Wave.
Even then, let's be honest.
No, you need a lot of draw to support it. Also cost energy.
I don't know how powerful that is as a boss relic, essentially.
Only 1 pawn, man. Thank you for the raid. Welcome. This tier list sucks. Who made it? Not me.
If you want to just compare those, if you are confused for some reason, then yeah, very obvious. This is just a really, really good effect. And you do have
the problem with Corrosive Wave is that it costs the energy.
Cloning Adrenaline sort of just
so slide payoffs are 0 cost. Corosive Wave costs energy.
And play over and over and over again, well, you're going to be able to do that. So you can sort of just play whatever you want.
Also, the number on Corosive Wave is too small.
It doesn't matter. Basically, anything you can play for damage is going to be absolutely broken with this. Essentially, it's just always good.
Okay, this guy's yapping about why Adrenaline is broken. Interesting.
Up against other rares that actually solve output for you and you really need them. Okay, next, anticipate 0 energy, skill, gain 2 dexterity.
I don't like this
card. This is a card that you can pick if you are having problems scaling block, like say you do not find footwork, let's say you have a lot of draws.
It's a very low impact draw.
Fiddle, whatever.
Right.
You have any sort of like
you need to draw it with
relics or whatever it is to line this up with defense cards. Because alone this doesn't do anything. When you draw it with other blocks, it can be very strong in the upgrade.
For it to be 0 energy block 4.
So if this comes green, it can be very, very strong. You can essentially just read this as block 4 for 0 energy.
So
and sometimes have a higher ceiling.
Very
sometimes it can block
niche.
More,
if you have a lot of draw, this is good.
For the next turn, and then
but if you don't, it's kind of a brick
draw.
draw.
Sort of thing that multi-blocks, maybe
I don't really like these kind of skills
in general, or you have problems making progress with that energy.
Just because the Rito is in the game and Young Glass is in the game.
Card for you. It can sort of regain energy.
But yeah, if you have like a mid or a lot of draw, this can be good.
And then you play a third card on damage or whatever.
Yeah, like if you have a Pale's Blood.
I would say it's not getting picked very frequently.
Like you have a lot of draw for
including
Pale's Blood.
This if I've seen like no block cards throughout the act.
But yeah, it's a bit of a low impact draw, which I don't like.
It does give you an amount of output.
Probably like a B or C tier. The ceiling of the card is high, but floor is really low.
Pretty decent. I would say most of the time it becomes unnecessary the second you see footwork or any other way to scale block, like with relics.
Yeah, if you see a footwork, this is also just useless.
Threshold that you need to meet to block for a long time. Maybe an endgame, but in endgame, I feel like there's better things to be doing. Usually you will have powers by then. So I think this is just like kind of definition of a C tier card. Has its spots.
C tier is
probably
fair.
Gonna go at the top of C tier for me. I do like this card a fair amount, but I don't think it's very, very powerful.
I think dashing C is still criminal.
Energy, skill, gain 5 block, draw 2 cards. I think this card now is pretty convincingly just better than Acro. It's still
backflip, broken, pick every copy. Yep.
Anticipate whatever. But also like footwork, any decks that you get from your relics, as mentioned earlier, it's just very convincingly better. I think honestly that I will just go ahead and play backflip into S. It's probably gonna sit closer to the bottom, to be clear. But it being a block common is something that actually like I want to spend energy.
Yeah, like you cannot pick this into knob. You pick 20 backflips into knob, you can destroy, but there's no knob. It just freaking flip and the enemies die.
Acro, as mentioned, but backflip just doesn't need very much. Probably first copy over skip just always gets in. I would say it works well with pinpoint, works with flechettes.
I think maybe I stop at the 4th copy.
But that is
if I don't have dexterity.
If you have Fresnel lens,
I pick like 3 without dexterity. Then if I have dexterity, I pick every copy.
It's just gonna get better and better. Very little needed to work with it, and I think overall I'm just kind of happy to pick block cards on this character in general. Next up, we have Blade Dance.
Blade
One energy skill,
Dance.
add 3 shivs into your hand, exhaust. The exhaust thing is kind of making this worse, I think, than Leading Strike, for example. There's
Blade
some
Dance has a
reasons why you would
problem.
like this to exhaust,
It's a
relics,
skill.
namely, Joss Paper, whatever. Most of the time, I think
Yeah,
when you
it's
want
a
to like, pick
skill.
a card like this and upgrade it for
Unlucky.
damage, you want to be able to replay it. And unfortunately, Blade Dance is not getting replayed because it says exhaust.
It's
so I
like,
think Blade Dance Inspire 1 was
I mean, it
upgraded very
opens
frequently on
up
this
the
game,
shift
it's super
power, so
If
first
you have shift
copy,
stuff, it's
still
very
good.
especially early on.
But
for
if you
shift cards.
have
I will say be careful.
other ways
overpick
to make
the shift
shifts,
cards
I
when
don't
you have
want
shift
it.
synergies. You're better off kind of like keeping the deck like 2 or 3 shift cards.
Yeah, if you have other
drawing
shift
into your
cards, I
accuracy
don't want
early,
this
or whatever
one.
it is, Phantom Blades, you name
It's
it.
like one of the
Blade Dance
worst ones.
is
It's better
also just an
than
okay card to pick up early, just starts
certain
one
other
damage.
shift
As
cards,
mentioned
but
a
it's
lot throughout the
not
attacks here.
that
That's a pretty
good.
decent rating. You can direct that damage however.
Probably
Stealth
just like
reacts
B
with
tier.
Strength. Again, works
Yeah,
with
put
the
it in
relics
B
that
tier.
work on exhaust stuff, works with all the shift things. Kind of just a great card early and gets out of the way when you don't want it. If you do see accuracy or Phantom Blades and stuff, it opens us up to be immediately winning. And as mentioned earlier, being 1 card away from being immediately strong is a very good position to find yourself in.
I think
And Blade Dance is very
the
often putting you
thing
in that
being a
position where
skill
you can
thing is like
just
kind of
see the
real,
shift
which is
powers,
very
and then
funny.
suddenly your dex damage goes up by a lot. Obviously, it exhausts.
Because
so you do want some sources of
sometimes
shifts,
the
but it is
knob
sort of just a bridge
in
card
Act
that gets
3
you
can be a
where you need to go.
problem,
This
and the
pretty clearly
Dorito is
just
definitely a
A-tier
problem.
for me. Most of the shift package I think is just very strong now, especially after discard got nerfed. I'm just picking these.
So yeah, I'll
more often
probably
because
Blade
I'm
Dance in
slamming shift
B.
powers on site now, and it seems to just be winning. So,
But
we'll
the
throw that as
first
A-tier and
copy
move on.
always gets picked
Next
pretty
up,
much.
Blade
So.
Bank. 1 energy skill, add 2 Inky Shivs into your hand. Inky Shivs are just shivs that deal additional
Oh,
damage.
Inky
1
Shifts
damage
do
now,
not do
they got so nerfed,
damage
and
anymore.
plug
They are
weakness.
4 damage. They
Weakness
got
is very good.
nerfed.
Shivs are very good. I don't think it's hard
But
to
I
understand why this
assume
would be
this is
a
still very good.
exceptional card. This is
Yeah, it's like Omega
very,
nerfed.
very strong. And it doesn't say exhaust, so you can sort of treat this as just like a good
And
dance.
S
Also
tier
works
probably
well
still
because
fair.
these, shivs are enchanted. If you have like the Mystic Lighter, that they're doing a lot.
A
of damage.
lighter
It's
is
basically
crazy
Phantom
with
Blades on
this,
every
holy
single block
crap.
of your shivs. So Blade Bank can be your damage solve, but it also just is a huge utility card. Strips multiple layers of artifact at the same time, which is very important. And
Also-
just exceptional card. I think this is close
Also,
to the hunt.
Knife
Maybe
Trap.
above the hunt. I'll throw it below for
Knife
now. I
Trap
think
plays
that's a little too strong on
the
hunt
Inky
to
Shifts, and Knife
warrant
Trap
moving that at
applies
all.
weakness.
But
It's
yeah,
kind of
just
fun.
very, very strong. A lot of parallels you can draw to this in a lot of the earlier cards mentioned, so I don't feel like I need to go into it too much, but yeah, great. Okay, Blade Symphony is a multiplayer card. I'll briefly mention it. I think it's still really, really strong.
Blade
After having actually played a lot of
Symphony,
multiplayer now,
what a
I think that even
nonsense.
2-player, this is very powerful. It really wants the upgrade now, but the more players you add, the
The
more broken it
older
gets.
one rotted,
As mentioned before, a lot
unlucky.
of ships have really broken interactions with exhaust and things like Dark Embrace, Swim the Pain, whatever. So yeah, really exceptional card, probably like 8 or something. Okay, Blur, 1 energy skill.
Blur.
Is not removed at the start of your
Also,
action.
a lot better
Silence
than
has
Spiral
now, I
1
think, a harder time finding access to
because
retain,
there
because
is
Lily
no
Plains is now rare.
knob.
And Blur is sort of saying retain, just in a different flavor.
Yeah.
And especially with bosses that hit you hard on like
Blur
one
is
turn
pretty
and not the
good.
next, and
Blur
vice
is pretty
versa.
good.
Blur is allowing you to carry over energy and also block into a turn that demands a lot of output. Say, for
Not as
example,
good
Crabs,
as
there's sort of a weak
Backflip,
turn, and
in
then
my
the turn
opinion,
after,
but
the right claw hits you for a
close.
lot of damage. And Blur is helping a lot there. Aeon Glass
Like
is
if you
also
do
true.
not have
Test Subject,
dexterity, I
also
don't
true,
want
especially
too
when
many
it's split with
blurs.
Test Subject and changes phase over. You can blur on that turn, hold block for this first turn before you're able to
Like a lot
consistently
of
apply
random
weakness on
use
phase 2
cases
and 3
for Blur.
and cover your bases there. So if you have a lack of draw consistency, if you have excess block, if you have any dexterity at all, really, Blur becomes exceptional.
Yeah.
I think overall I like this card a lot. It's not picked super early just because you're looking for damage, and this is
I picked
essentially
this in
just
Act
defense
1.
at the early game. It's not often you're overblocking instead of early game
Picked this on
very
floor
frequently,
1.
but it very quickly becomes extremely,
Over skip,
extremely
but
strong.
not over like a
Many
real
decks
card.
can sort of solve endgame block, and also like Queen, for example, like the first turn when Queen actually becomes active, she hits you very hard, her 45. And Blur can
Also,
help
pretty
repair
funny
that
with the
turn. So
Diadem,
if you
because
just have
Diadem
consistency issues,
buff
Blur
is
helping
literally
there.
just
I think
Blur.
this is just
They
very
get Blur
easily
again
done
to
S
retain
tier
one
for
more
me now.
turn.
Kind of a card I've grown to like.
It
more
just
and more as I've
stacks.
played. Inspire 1 was nowhere near as good, but in this game the consistency is so nice, and enemies don't actually hit you as hard, so you're able to retain block more. We also have the change to Diamond Diadem, and Blur is the
Oh
same
my
thing. And so if you have
god, he
Diadem, you're
read
carrying
my
a lot of blocks,
mind.
your Vote
What
Rise,
the
your
hell?
Horncleave, Captain's Wheel. You can sort of carry the block over. So if you have any block from relics at all, I think it's a really good
Why
signal to
is
your
this
Blur,
guy
but I feel like
copying what
most
I'm
decks
saying?
will benefit from a Blur throughout.
He
run at
watched
some
my
points.
tier list.
It will become better as the run goes later usually, but sometimes it can be very good against maybe Waterfall Giants or even the Fish. Lots of bosses. So yeah, don't sleep on it. I think it's really strong. I could see cases for just saying it's A tier or whatever, but I'm fine either way. I think it's clearly somewhere in this area, bottom of S.
Blur
maybe
is
somewhere in there.
bodyguard, kind
Next
of.
up, Bouncing Flash, 2 energy, apply 3 poison to a random enemy 3 times. Poison's gotten a tiny glove since last making this.
Bouncing
I think
Flash
this is
used to
still
be
one of
D
the
tier, but
worst
I
poison
like it a
cards. I don't
little
think it's
bit
the
more
worst,
now.
But I very frequently try to
Just a
not
little
pick
bit.
poison cards unless I've
Because
seen something else
accelerant.
that is
Yeah,
actually
just
giving me a
because of
sign to want to
accelerant.
do it. Say, Snecko Skull has a really cool interaction with this.
So
but
put
most
it
of the
in
time, this is
C.
a card I'm actively trying to avoid and skip.
Yeah, before
it is just not doing
accelerant.
enough damage the turn that you play it, and is overall
Before
clunky and gonna be
accelerant,
really
this is
difficult
like,
to actually get down.
holy
I would have a
crap,
hard time
so
putting this in C tier
bad.
again. I think it's still probably better than most of the stuff, even in the bottom of C tier, but it is not a good card by any means. It solves long fight damage for you if you need it. it at the cost of probably taking damage the turn you play it. So I think we'll throw it in C.
Okay, I
a
agree.
dagger Throw,
Put
something
it in
like
C.
this. It's something you can pick if you need. It's just very expensive to play and rather difficult.
Expose cost 0
Right,
with
next,
this cost
bubble,
2.
energy skill. If the enemy has poison, apply 9.
The most
poison.
overrated card in the game. The bubble
There's
bubble.
more good cards that apply poison.
Oh
this
god,
time
he's gonna
around
put it in
than
A
before.
or something.
Bubble, I think is a card that I will pick if I have like Twisted Funnel, if I have other poisons.
God, he's gonna put it in A.
Which is a very good rate. If you compare it to Bouncing Flask and there's no other outside interactions and you don't care about like Bouncing Flask stripping artifact multiple times.
Bouncing Flask can do it for
instead of 2. So
the Bygone Effigy for sure.
If you have Wily Plants, if you have Pyramid, whatever.
B for Bubble, I think it's fair because it's a very efficient card.
Cycling and have like 1 poison card and just want to apply a ton of poison on the enemy. Bubble is like
this
is cost efficient.
This is basically Catalyst at home.
Bubble's probably going to be good.
That's Bubble is Catalyst at home.
But even just a poison potion.
But if you can make it work, it's very efficient.
It's just gonna work. And in other fights, if you
it's my preferred poison card. If I want to pick a poison card,
I think Bubble is probably just B tier for me.
Only B for Bubble.
Dagger Spray. I don't think it matters too much, but cost efficient for what it's doing. And
why is Dagger Spray in B, bro? It looks so out of place. Put it down C, please. Put it in C.
Okay, bullet time. 3 energy. You cannot draw additional cards this turn. All cards in your hand are free to play this turn. If you have Fiddle, absolutely disgusting. Cheat out your entire hand. If you have something like Backflip or Acrobatics and you are drawing into
bullet time works with Fiddle, works with... It will
cost 2 energy and then you can play your card bullet time and be happy. Until then, it's going to
be works with Pale's Blood.
For the most part, this reads like get 1 energy.
Works
if you think about what you're doing
a mid.
Turns, you're drawing 5 cards. And most of those cards
works with relaxes. That's like a very cool use case, by the way. Bullet time relax.
And also, if you have like high cost cards in your deck, you're likely to also have lower cost cards.
So I do think this is a little underrated, probably C tier though. But D tier definitely not.
Most of the time, anyways. If you have Snecko Eye, this gets really good. Again, there's a lot of use cases for that. I think to me, this is just sort of C tier. It's very infrequent. This is good.
Why is he copying me?
Probably better than Murder and probably better than Grand Finale.
Why is he copying me?
But very often it can just not cheat any energy at all. I think Silent just has better ways of getting it. If it comes green or you have these aforementioned things.
Yeah, I've never played anyone, seen anyone play Bullet Time.
If you just draw more cards, it's just turning.
I had it wrong where I have relaxed Nightmare Bullet Time is like the most broken thing of all time. That Bullet Time.
Not indications of how good the card can be, just how often it is. And most of the time you are not going to have these energies when you're being offered this thing, like end of Act 1 or whatever, and need to pick it. There are other ways to get energy. It is sparse on Silent, and so I will not say that it's never going to happen, but the other energy generation
yeah, you can just pick Bullet Time with Pale's Blood, honestly.
Okay, next up,
that's the most common use case.
Next skill is played an extra time. The main use case for this Inspire 1 was Burst Catalyst, and that sort of won the fight immediately. This game does not have that. I don't think there's very many skills that you can just say, if I burst this, I win immediately.
I burst Blur, I win immediately.
Rare, it's going to be even worse. Burst, I think, unfortunately, very often reads.
No, I'm for real. I burst Blur.
The best use case for it
I win immediately.
Especially inside of early game. So instead of early game, this is like a card that you're not really happy to see, and speculating on it does not become very strong.
But yeah, you don't really want to speculate. You do need
a best skill in your hand, I guess.
You do need a burst target.
How good is a rare card that just says play Blade Dance? Probably not that good. It also has a lot of draw dependency issues. If you draw with no good skills in your hand that you want to burst, again,
I think the ceiling is super high, and the floor isn't so low because you can always burst block.
On average than like Grand Finale. But
so I think I pick it a lot more than the other C tier stuff here. Probably go to B tier, B for burst.
Next up, Calculated Gamble, 0 energy skill, discard your hand, then draw that many cards, exhaust. Calc Gamble just says
Calc Gamble just gets your powers in play.
Powers and do whatever else you want to be doing. And with the change Inspire to it, it or on it,
slide.
And yeah, it does not lose exhaust. And so before,
yeah, it just gets your powers played sooner.
And also
very good.
Like tough bandages,
solid card
to do damage or block or whatever, and activate all your slide, discard, synergy stuff. Now that Calc Gamble exhausts,
A or S, I don't know, probably A.
And so earlier I mentioned that
compared to the broken S stuff, not as good.
Calc Gamble just isn't repeatable in the same way anymore, and so it
can't
actually be used in
if backflip is in S, then
this is less so a discard card and more so like that's an extra effect, and the main thing is just draw a bunch of cards for free, and that's essentially just Acro better. I think Calc Gamble is very clearly just S tier card. It doesn't need a whole lot of
I guess if like
really just
backflip is here, then Gamble is here.
Activating discard synergies on the side as a bonus is really nice. Can help increase the consistency of picking things like Reflex and Tactician. You don't need a whole lot to ever make this good. It gets better with additional draws. So let's say you have backflip already in the deck.
The upgrade to retain is good. I don't really care like 90% of the time.
Like you don't play the shivs, you just throw.
Because the main use case is to play your powers
down or whatever.
But if you are running some slide stuff, you can maybe upgrade it.
But yeah, Calc Gamble always sort of positive pickup. There's very few times where I don't want it. I think Fiddle is the most obvious one. But I had a run where I used Calc Gamble with Fiddle just to discard Withers and Aeon Glass and not draw any cards. It just literally read discard my hand, and it was still a good card. So it has a lot of utility on top of just being generically very strong, which I think just warrants a top slot. Okay, Cloak and Dagger, 1 energy gain, 6.
Holy broken.
Shivs again are just really strong.
This is so broken.
Blades, you really only want 1 Shiv. The upgrade makes
this skills with dexterity and Shiv powers. What?
Early because it reads block on it. I think
is that legal?
Any Shiv card just sort of gets in, except for maybe up my sleeve. The rest of them are all pretty powerful, and this is no exception here. So
yeah,
I think
probably
this is
A
tier for me. Probably like bottom of A.
I picked this more than Blade Dance, like a lot more.
Again, it's just a card that puts you like 1 card away from being really strong, and that's worth a pickup basically.
I don't want the second copy though.
Next up,
if you don't have synergies.
Card, so we're not really going to talk about it.
The first copy is quite good.
Being very good in 2-player. That's the multiplayer mode I played the most. A little too Disneyland. Needing
concoct
really right. It can go really right, but it's just often not
I think
worth
this
adding.
is
There's better
better
things to be
in
doing
4
on your
player,
own. If you have 4
but
people,
2
then I
player
think
it's kind of sus.
quite okay. But yeah, probably like C tier in my head. Not gonna place it again for multiplayer reasons. Next up, Corrosive Wave. 1 energy whenever you draw a card, apply 2 poison to all enemies.
What a garbage.
I think unfortunately, if Calc Gamble was unexhausting in this game, this would actually be pretty decent to do something like Calc Gamble and Reflex and play Corrosive Wave, whatever, and turn this into a lot of damage. Corrosive Wave, especially upgraded, can read a lot of AoE poison, like 9 poison to all enemies or something from an Acro that's upgraded and has the ceiling of being way better if you get like Acro and Calc Gamble.
Corrosive Wave into Gambler's Brew into solving the Death Millipede.
Like I'm really adding as much draw into my Silent decks as I was before, just because Acro has moved to uncommon, as well as this just being sort of a card that says do nothing unless you draw it with other stuff. So you need a critical massive draw to really activate this.
Yeah, I love the White Energy do nothing cards. It's my favorite.
Really transform into it. I think that's when I've had it happen for a few reasons. One, transforms basically remove base cards out of your deck, so it makes it easier to line up these combos. And so if you get it off a transform, it can work really well. If you're actually adding it to your deck and you still have all your base cards, you're just not going to draw it alongside your draw cards often enough to actually have it do anything. And for that reason, I think it's just C tier. It just doesn't work often.
I would like put it in D even,
but in my head, so I'm just going to throw this somewhere here.
I pick Burst a lot more than this.
Just not
like a lot more.
Also, the payoff is just not worth it even when it does line up, except in very niche scenarios. Next up, Deadly Poison, 1 energy skill, apply.
What a garbage.
This is one of the worst options for poison in the game, unfortunately. Deadly Poison just needs the upgrade to really apply.
If it comes upgraded, it's like the best card of all time.
Basically, never wants to get it.
If it's not upgraded, it's like the worst card of all time. It's super funny.
I really want this, and I'm only picking it if I'm extremely desperate for damage.
But yeah, if a card demands an upgrade, then it's not a good sign. D tier is fair.
Next up, Deflect, 0 energy skill, gain 4 block. On previous patches, I would say this was a bit better. I think now I find myself just picking it less, probably because I'm adding other block cards more frequently, and we also have more access to energy.
Deflect is like a dexterity thing.
I think you get punished.
If you have dexterity, it's like pretty sick. If you have a mid, it's okay.
So this is definitely worse than the release patch by quite a bit. Without additional synergies like having dexterity or having nimble on this or something, I don't think it should be added very often. If you have no other block,
but yeah, if you have no block and like too much draw or something, you can consider it. Otherwise, the Dorito, it's gonna Dorito you.
This is probably just C tier for me now.
Yeah, C tier seems okay.
Very often. It's close to being B tier probably, but it's just not all that great. Let's drop it below.
Some of these C tier cards need to go up, like the dash.
Okay, next up, dodge and roll. 1 energy, gain 4 block. Next
this is the best dexterity payoff.
And if you have something that doubles the amount of
also a good upgrade.
Legion, it works both turns.
They can just upgrade this by hand, and it's like fine.
Instances, and that's quite cool. There's a couple of things that can do that.
But yeah, without dexterity, I don't want to pick too many copies.
It's just not a huge deal, but I think this is slightly worse than before. Again, sort of lower impact draws and blocking.
Yeah, Doritos running around.
I will say against Dorito, this thing does block on 1 turn and then not trigger the downside the next turn, so you're getting block on 2 turns.
Maybe B tier,
which does make it a bit easier to play. Like you can play.
I don't pick that many. I don't pick that many copies without dexterity.
To block with dexterity, if you do not have other things going on or like powers that block for you, having footwork or whatever makes this card extremely good. And sometimes you end up in decks that have like
pretty high ceiling card if with dexterity, but
it can be better than Blur sometimes if you're not actually over blocking. But it's picked in similar spots, I would say. And inside of Act 1, it's just like good enough to sort of pick up. I don't think it's S tier like I would have said it was before, but I think it's probably just very easily inside of A tier somewhere. I think I like Cloak and Dagger slightly more than it, so I'm gonna leave that where it is.
I like both as cards.
Okay. Next up, Escape Plan. 0 energy draw skill.
Oh, this card.
Again, this is something that was punished pretty hard by Dorito. And also Aeon Glass, right? You're just sort of like
this card actually not very good if you are if you do not have dexterity.
Those 2 enemies have really dropped this a bit. I still think it's a good card. Instead of Act 1 and in most fights in the rest of the game, it's
like the first copy. You can kind of pick it, but it's kind of bad for every Act 3 boss.
Still, again, not quite S, but good enough for.
You get destroyed by Aeon Glass. You get destroyed by Knob. You get destroyed by
Letter Opener or something.
The Bound thing on Queen. So without dexterity, the second copy basically never gets played.
This has been changed on the current beta branch to now give you less
draw.
So
I think Escape Plan probably go to B tier for me.
In that situation, I think just isn't enough draw. And again, Silent struggles really hard for energy.
Expertise.
I don't think that rework has actually really changed how good this card is. I have not played with it a ton just off of nature of not clicking it. It just doesn't read that well to me, but maybe I'm missing something. I'm
Expertise is like
in my head, this has not really moved the needle at all.
It's so basically Predator without
oftentimes when you want to draw
the damage attached,
like compared to Backflip, you would rather just have the guaranteed effect of blocking.
Yeah, it's basically Predator without the damage attached, which isn't very good.
Even if you draw into nothing.
To be fair,
when you play something like Expertise or Acro or something, you really need those draws to solve the turn. And unfortunately, I don't think this is enough draw to really warrant that.
But yeah, kind of
that are considered good
need an upgrade for it to be super impactful.
Obviously, it's on a different character, but doing damage is just good. right? Sometimes you just need to do damage and the draw is an afterthought. Expertise, its main function is just to draw. And so if it's not solving, then it's not really going to be all that exciting.
I have picked expertise a couple times. It's
Next
like
up, expose,
whatever.
Zero energy,
Expose. Holy.
This has really cool interactions throughout the run, namely the bug inside of Act 2 that burrows into the ground and you need to break the shield.
Broken card.
But
first copy basically always, then second copy usually always as well.
And this lets you apply weakness.
The third copy depends.
So yeah, basically free vulnerable and artifact strip. There's a lot of enemies that have a lot of artifacts in this game. Mecha Knights, a lot of the enemies inside of Act 3, like the cube.
Yeah, artifact
like
running around.
Just bursting down an enemy and being able to strip shield is also relevant. There's more enemies in this game that apply block than there was in Spire 1, so that affected
card art is very on point, by the way. That enemy has a lot of artifact.
I don't really think I have to explain much more behind that. Glass is just probably the toughest enemy in the game at the moment, at least. And
also vulnerable is valuable to have.
Glass, but you do need to be thinking about it.
Every run should.
Being a very, very strong card into Glass is exceptionally good. Definitely stronger than it was. And we're doing more stuff with physical damage now with shivs, so we care more about the vulnerable than we did before as well. Okay. Fade. Skill retain. Another player gains 6 dexterity. This turn, this is a multiplayer card. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I don't think it's super good. You generally don't want to be playing cards that don't do anything for you unless the effect is really good. And unfortunately, that's just not that good.
Jason just hates his teammates. He doesn't want his teammates to block. What a nonsense, dude.
That is an effect I'm talking about. That's exceptionally good. This is probably just S tier. We're going to briefly move on with that. This is not a multiplayer tier list. Okay. 1 energy, hand trick. Skill, gain 7 block, add slide to a skill in your hand this turn.
Unfortunately,
again, there's just not that many skills I care
Unfortunately, I have picked enough hand tricks now.
Talk a little bit, but the payoff is
to know it's like okay.
Like,
which is very sad.
Is fine.
The fact that hand trick is an okay card.
Discard card that you also want to play, and then also have a skill that you want to cheat out.
Because you just play snake bite with it.
Specific cards usually that you need to draw.
It all comes back to the snake bite.
I don't really want to add.
I cannot put it in D tier. I think it's better than the stuff in D tier.
Probably just D tier for me. I think there's ways that you can make this stronger.
Also,
if sometimes, but it is wildly.
If hand trick comes upgraded, it's 10 block.
That'd be good.
You just pick it because it blocks for 10.
Okay, next up, Haze. This has 3 energy, Sly, apply 4 poison to all enemies.
What tier is snake bite? It's coming. It's coming soon.
Haze on the beta branch reads apply 4 poison and 1 weak to all enemies.
Alright, Haze.
2 energy.
If really needs an upgrade.
You might realize that is very close to another card that we had called Crippling Cloud.
Without the upgrade, it's kind of sad.
2 weakness at base. You need to upgrade it for it to apply 2 weakness. And also the upgrade goes from 4 to 6 instead of 4 to 7. The energy cost is the same, but very notably, this card does not exhaust.
But yeah, if a card demands an upgrade, it just goes down a tier for me. It's difficult to pick up in some situations.
2 layers of AoE strip is even better, but notably this is kind of doing 2 things that work well together. When you are poisoning the enemy, what you want to do is sit around in the fight and let the poison tick down. And how do you do that? Well, you need to block. How are you blocking? Weakness, right? So I think this card just has built-in synergy that makes it much better than a lot of other poison cards, and I think this maybe is one of the best poison cards, if not the best. It's definitely up there. Crippling Cloud is a card I really, really liked inside of Spire 1, and I think it's just a better effect inside of this game, to be honest. Very, very strong upgrade. This needs to be upgraded basically immediately. I think as an unupgraded card, it's not super strong, but the upgrade is exceptionally good. So definitely a card I think most decks want. Weakness is just a very strong effect, and this is just a very good way of getting it. So
A tier, probably not,
here
because
Enjoyer, and I think that is not
if a card needs to be upgraded,
energy,
that's a pretty big downside. I cannot really evaluate the card and pretending it comes upgraded.
I think oftentimes you play this last and you just end up discarding 1 card out of your hand. It can discard a Sender's Bane and be kind of.
But yeah, the upgrade's very good.
Why you're picking this? It's just an added upside. Really, you just pick this to say 0 energy make.
But yeah, I have skipped a lot of Haze because I just cannot afford the upgrade.
Good card to see early. 0 energy again, letting you make progress while also blocking and doing other things.
Hidden Dagger is pretty strong card.
Those discard synergies, and also importantly in Aeon Glass, getting rid of 2 cards.
Hidden Daggers, Ricochet just like cooks everything.
Usually paired with draw effects because you need to be discarding specific cards, but certainly in Aeon Glass that is not really true. Like you're just getting rid of Withers and they always appear in your hand. Hidden Daggers now is just easily S tier. It is definitely better than Leading Strike. I think even as
I don't know if it's better than Leading Strike actually.
And say that this is definitely just like one of the best shift cards in the game. There's a lot of very good shift cards, but this one is.
I don't think it's that clear. It's
okay. Next up, Knife Trap. 2 energy. Play every shiv in your exhaust.
Sometimes you actually cannot afford to discard.
We didn't really have much of a use for this.
It comes up.
Shivs were not even really the dominant way that I was
more often than you think.
Now that is not true. 1, you need the damage. Bosses
but it costs 0.
So extremely terrifying. Test subject has been buffed. That is also terrifying. There's a lot of reasons why you need to push damage, and also the fact that the shivs in general.
That trap's pretty good if you have shivs.
Going to have this be a
pretty good with Razor Tooth because your shivs are upgraded automatically.
Is just a boss killing card that doesn't need very much. If you're playing 2 energy to like throw 10 shivs at the enemy, and that's buffed with accuracy or something, that's extremely powerful. That can proc.
Yeah, just a big boss killing card.
Earlier, just insanely good. The upgrade's pretty solid.
Also plays very well with Ninja Relics.
Is the big
like
one or
proc Ninja Relics 500 times.
Just way better just for context reasons, like the game surrounding it has changed a lot. The card text really hasn't changed, but everything surrounding it has made this just a better card than it was before. I think honestly that I'm going to put Knife Trap at like bottom of A. If it's not good yet, you should probably consider carrying it around just for the boss. It's going to be pretty rough in hallways, but if you have like 3 shiv cards or like 2 cards maybe, even,
I mean, I would not really blind pick Knife Trap, but you need some shivs in your deck already.
That Knife Trap becomes very good. And I think it just performs super well at the role that it needs to do. It can like literally one-shot test subject phase. You can scale it during Queen, like while the minion is alive and easy to block, and then burst it.
Yeah, it's like a big boss killer.
Aeon Glass before the withers overwhelm you. Silent just needs tools.
This Under Predator is so weird though.
So much better than it was last time. Let's go ahead and move on. Next up, leg sweep.
Broken S tier, go next.
The upgrade's very good, extends weakness, makes the block number go bigger. I don't think I need to explain much. I think we've already talked about how good weakness is a keyword. Blocking and applying weakness at the same time is really just reading a big block number, like bigger than what the actual block number reads. Leg sweep has always been one of the best cards on the character. I think that has not really changed at all. You need to apply weakness to make it reasonable to block most enemies, and I think this card is just exceptional. So probably just throwing that above Hidden Daggers, definitely close to one of the best cards in the character. The whole S tier is obviously just insane cards, but the top tier of S tier is even better than the bottom by quite a bit, I would say. Okay, next up, Malaise. X-Boss. Skill, enemy loses X strength, apply X weak, exhaust.
Oh my god, every card is broken on this character. What the hell?
Malaise is solving that fight very easily. You basically play it once, and then for the rest of the fight, the Judo's not really going to hit you for very much. The multi-hit is really the turn in that fight that is going to
It's so funny against the Beehive guy and
the or the Queen can be debuffed to a point
the
where
Dorito.
The multi is just not doing anything to you, and those are the scary
You just played Malaise and they don't do anything.
That's extremely scary. Aeon Glass has a multi-attack. Basically every scary fight in the game has a multi-attack except for a handful. And even if the enemy's not multi-attacking, reducing their strength can meet some really good thresholds. You should pay attention to the rounding on weakness here. Do a bit
also
of
pretty decent
to figure
upgrade.
Out how to
one more strength down and one more weak.
Not all that impactful to use like all 3 of your energy. Sometimes it only needs
also pretty good for. I mean, okay, it's pretty good like everywhere. I can stop listing examples.
If you are vulnerable, Malaise is getting more effective. So against Queen when you're debuffed, and the enemy hits you for 9 by 5.
It also cooks the Queen.
6 by 5.
Yep.
And so when you Malaise it, that number
cooks
goes down.
Every boss.
The vulnerable amount on you is going to be doing less damage, right? So Malaise and weakening the enemy's strength and weakness in general can just be
broken ass
really,
card.
Really powerful. This is easily S tier. Don't have to talk very much about it. Okay, next up is Mirage.
Oh, this card
is Exhaust. On the beta branch, this no longer says Exhaust on it. And so if you are doing any sort of poison damage with any amount of consistency, this is a card you can loop to actually scale block. That makes it much better because very
had
often
the pleasure of picking this a couple
times.
To
be played later into the fight, and it could not be looped once you've already scaled, and it meant that it wouldn't actually stabilize the fight for you. Now that's not true. You can sort of just loop this, and you can also play like Mirage
it upgrades
to gain a huge amount of block.
This text and upgrade to nice, not exhaust.
Like
so one cost.
Poison because there's 3 of them. That's still a respectable block card.
So you do kind of need to upgrade if you want to play this multiple times. If your deck is doing poison stuff, this is insane.
Being a block engine now, really, that I can set up and sort of keep playing over and over. And maybe store block throughout turns, and this can be like
plays very well with the blur too.
So I think we're gonna bump this up. Probably to like top of C tier. I think it's still too niche by a little bit, but definitely not D tier.
I don't think it's C tier. I think it's B tier. The card just kind of owns.
Choose a card. Next turn, add 3 copies of that card into your hand.
I mean, if you have no poison, obviously do not pick it.
Most frequently used for output solves. And what I mean by that is you're going to be nightmaring powers. You're going to be nightmaring something that increases your top end in the fight because obviously it's very expensive inside of hallway.
Yeah, nightmare just boss solve.
You just skip it.
Nightmare power.
And so early game it's very bad to carry this around. It's basically doing nothing. As mentioned earlier, I have done like nightmare neutralize with like some draw cards to solve my damage. That is very fringe, and that was a transform. But it can do some stuff. You sort of need to have a target in mind when you're doing this. If you see Alchemize at a store or something, that can be game breaking.
Nightmare what is this guy doing?
Sort of meta scaling that can do some funny stuff. This is a classic Spire 1. I would not recommend stalling. It is not very fun, but it does exist. So, anyways, Nightmare is.
I hate this streamer.
When you need
why would he say this?
Desperation solving, but you would almost rather just have extra copies of the power that you are trying to copy or whatever it is. Notably, you can do
it's like
or something, and that fixes the
desperation.
You need to draw it alongside an
scaling.
Target. And the main way to make Nightmare good
but it should be better than D-tier crap. Putting in C.
Then this card gets a lot better. If you have a bunch of energy cheat, if you have Pounce to cheat it out, sure, we can do some funny things with it. But very often the deck lacks an actual target for this, I find, or it's just not needed. I don't think it's quite D-tier because Aeon Glass often demands output, but probably just somewhere roughly bullet time.
Sounds reasonable.
Just most often a curse, like it cannot be played, but has a niche in the end game to solve that. But sometimes bosses like Lagavulin, you can like Nightmare Backstab or Assassinate or something, and it's not so terrible. But yeah, not exceptional by any means.
And Nightmare Backstab,
a not exceptional card would be Piercing Whale, which is a completely disgustingly good card.
Yeah, okay, Piercing Whale S tier. Go next.
This reads block for oftentimes well over 20 in a fight. In Queen, for example, this is blocking full 45. In AoE fights, this can be blocking way more. Just a gross card. I think if you just start understanding that this has 1 more interactions, it strips artifact, it just reads block 6 at like the worst case. Obviously, if the enemy has artifact, sometimes you can do no block, but you're at least stripping artifact. For the most part, Piercing Whale is a card that I want multiple copies of in almost every deck.
I would
just
take
gets
4
better as
copies.
the goes on, essentially. Yeah, crazy card. If you do not think this card belongs in S tier, and I could argue that it's better than Malaise, I'm not going to, I think, but the fact that it's a common and impacts the game and enemies
It's
that scale
not
with
better than
multi-attacks in the way
Malaise.
that it
Calm
does, like,
down,
blocking pest
Jason.
subject,
What are
almost
we
a full
doing
turn on its
here?
own, is just ridiculous. If you don't think it belongs where it is here, I just really urge you to just start picking every copy and just seeing what happens when you play them, because the Decim Millipedes become way less threatening. Every scary fight in the game, this is good in almost. The 3 Knights inside of Act 3, it's exceptional. Just in any 3 enemy fight, this can just read at worst 1 energy, block 18. That is a gross number, like a really, really gross number. Okay, next up, prepared, 0 energy skill, draw 1 card, discard 1 card. This is probably the best discard enabler and the easiest one, I think, to pick up without having anything else.
Prepare really kind of wants an upgrade.
I think it does need
like a first
an upgrade,
copy, you can
again,
kind
doing
of
discard stuff and
speculate
opening up
on.
discard stuff is something that's powerful to do, and even without discard stuff, it can just throw away withers in the
The
endgame.
upgrade is pretty important.
It says draw 2 cards.
So you can actually line up your ricochet. It's just prepare ricochet. It all comes back to the ricochet.
Piece for filtering deep into your deck that it's just easily S tier. This card, I think, is hurt by Dorito. Aeon it's kind of.
I don't think it's S tier. Probably just A tier, honestly.
It's a very good card. I'm gonna throw it below hidden.
He is contradicting himself.
It has so much utility throughout the run and just opens up so many things, being really strong. It's really hard.
You were just saying how the slide package is like Giga Nerf. Now you put this in S tier. When it's actually not that good without the upgrade.
When it comes green, you basically pick up.
But the first copy can pretty much always get in.
1 extra draw for no cost is exceptional. Next up, Reflex 3 energy, Sly, draw 2 cards. This upgrades to 3. It is a very, very good upgrade if you can actually consistently play this for free. And again, prepared is the main enabler for this thing. Acro with Reflex is not really that good, so this wasn't
the main enabler is actually Tools of the Trade, but
Reflex
sure.
really needs consistency. You never want to be playing this for 3 energy cost, obviously.
Like all
so
the Sly stuff actually just need Tools of the
Trade.
Trade.
If you can, it's free draw. So really, this comes down to how consistently can your deck do this. And
yeah, I don't speculate on Reflex at all.
Like 2 and maybe
even with 1 prepared, I might still just not pick it.
That's like kind of the bare minimum, I think, for wanting this to be like actually good. At 2, I'll consider it just because I'm very close to having it be broken. The other is Tools of the Trade. So with Tools of the Trade, after it's in play, which obviously you still need to draw into it, so I can brick you in your first cycle. But after Tools is in play, Reflex is free draw. And that's obviously very strong. So if you have Tools in the deck, Reflex becomes very consistent and just sort of extremely strong inside of long fights and just gets into the deck. I don't think this is S tier anymore. The whole Sly package is just worse than it was, and I can get into it less often. I think if anything, we put this at like top of B now, maybe.
Nah,
it is a little bit sad how much worse
B seems okay.
Is now, but I just find myself doing it so much less than I was doing.
Yeah, B seems okay.
Okay, next up. Scare. Apply 1 week to all enemies exhausted.
That card does not exist.
This card now was reworked and renamed into Sidestep. So we can sort of talk about
Sidestep is 0 energy, next turn gain 1 energy.
So if you're on the main branch, then I guess we can say that this card just says weakness on it. It's not so bad. It's not the best
energy card on the character that doesn't have energy, but it's a little bit low impact.
Yeah. Sidestep reads 0 energy, next turn, gain 1 energy.
It's better than
Sidestep
Wisp, in my opinion.
That I think most people will recognize as an analog to Outmaneuver from Slay the Spire.
Yeah, I think it's better than Wisp.
This card is basically meta-defining for Silent, I think. This single-handedly is like one of the only cards that actually solves
What is bro saying? What do you mean meta-defining?
Sidestep, and then use that to play more draw cards the next turn to play more sidesteps, and then repeat this loop, and every single turn you're playing more draw cards and then more sidesteps.
What the hell is he saying, dude?
You just get to scale by stacking more and more sidesteps, which allow you to draw into them again and again. The upgrade I think is really important, having 2 extra energy versus 1.
That scenario he's describing doesn't really happen, but it's just fine.
We have stuff like Malaise, we have stuff like Predator, we have stuff like
first copy once again can always be picked pretty much. But if you pick too many copies without the draw,
and I think we were
you actually break your draws.
This overall is probably one of the biggest changes that came out of
it does break your draw if you have no draw.
And we have an outmaneuver analog because in this
but you have if you have a lot of draw, this is very strong.
So badly,
probably like A tier for me.
And I guess we can sort of talk about Snakebite after this because they work really well together, and that definitely bumps up Snakebite's evaluation for me. But Sidestep I think is easily just S tier. This card is
very.
You really want to have explosive turns in this character, and this allows you to just.
I don't know what he's saying, dude.
And turbo through your deck essentially. It lets you set up really massive turns. You can do something like Nightmare Sidestep and actually be able to play all the cards that you nightmare. For example, lots of things just work with this in a really nice way, and Silent very often has very expensive energy requirements that she cannot really pay for.
I don't know what he's describing. I play a leading strike, I do 200 damage. That's my Silent deck.
Do with this, it just gets more and more broken the more I play with it. I think it's just one of the best cards on the character now by a lot. Okay. We'll talk about Snakebite here and skip a little bit ahead here because I think these two work in tandem. When you have Snakebite in your hand, it's very hard to actually play it.
Snakebite for me
Sidestep, much
has gone up a little bit.
That it pays for your Snakebite next turn, and then this becomes a thing you can play, and this can activate your bubble.
Yeah, Snakebite has gone up for me a little bit, mostly because Pound Snakebite is freaking insane.
and this can be something you need to be doing. Not that I'm like in love with Snakebite or anything,
but
I think this is much.
I don't really want to
It does
pick
sort of
this if I
need to
can
be upgraded.
avoid
Once
it.
upgraded, it's a lot better.
2 energy,
Bouncing class,
7,
unfortunately,
still
doesn't have
a
routine, right?
bad
And that's the main
rate.
thing that Snakebite has going over it. If you just compare the two numbers, it's worse. It strips less artifacts, does less damage. Bouncing class is kind of better in that regard. But the fact that you
Pound
have
Snakebite is
Sidestep now,
kind
and
of
it says routine on it,
broken.
it's a common card means that if you're just lacking for damage, Snakebite can just get in. I don't think Snakebites acceptable.
Still like
I'm
C
gonna put it
tier
in
for
D
me.
tier. I'm still trying to avoid picking it like inside of early game, but I think it's worth a mention that it's gone up for me, and I'm not.
It gone up for
shy
me
to
from
admit that.
D to C.
There's a lot of context around the game has changed to the point where that is now a desirable effect or a more desirable effect than before. Okay, let's jump back here to Shadow Step. 1 energy, discard your hand.
Oh
next turn,
my
extra double damage. We had a
god.
very similar effect to this inside of Spire 1, and it was complete garbage. You do not want to be discarding your entire hand. Obviously, now Wily Plains is less common, so we don't have to worry about that as much, but this has a very big problem of you don't know what your next hand's going to be. And if you draw
Shadow
and pay for
Step
Shadow Step, and then next turn you do not
Screws
see any
your
attacks, you have a
Phantom
big problem.
Blades.
You just wasted
It's
a card
so
and energy.
bad.
There's no real way to guarantee that your next hand is going to have attacks to actually play.
It's like
and you
actually
definitely don't
so
want to be flooding your deck
bad.
with a bunch of attacks to make Shadow Step work consistently. It's really clunky. Double is a crazy thing to put on a card. And so for that
But-
reason, it has its place if you are desperate for damage.
I mean, the
you can pick this, and
number
especially with the
is
upgrade, like,
large.
energy, it
You
becomes
can
more
play
playable,
with
but
potions,
definitely do not
like
want this
attack pot,
with
shift
Pyramid
pot.
or any Wily Plane sort of effects. Discarding your hand is
So
not choice to you.
cannot
I
be
will note that
D,
you can use it to discard letters
C
and
tier
glass.
for sure.
Again, that is like something that has to be talked about because of how run warping that enemy is, but it's
C
not
tier
something
for
I care
sure.
that much about to warrant putting this
Also
in the
plays with that
I think
relic.
it's similar to
Like the
Macleod, probably
AoE, the
a little
Giga
bit
Shadow Step
of it.
AoE
A lot of
relic,
these rares are
bomb, 20
bad,
damage.
But worth mentioning that they have their places, and that's kind of cool when rares can be bad but still useful in certain spots. Okay, next up, Shadow Meld, 1 energy, double your block in this turn. This card again suffers from something pretty similar, where you just need to draw it with a bunch of other stuff.
This card's
kind of reads
demanding
like a card that we
upgrade.
already went
It
over.
really
That's a 0
demands an
energy,
upgrade.
gain
It's
one
like
block
so
for
much
block.
output
This
if you can
obviously works with
upgrade
more
it.
stuff. You don't have to use just the dexterity to increase your block gain on cards.
However,
like, certain relics
unupgraded,
can
very
amplify,
not
right?
impressive.
Let's say you have tough bandages, and you can
Also,
discard cards.
let
This
the
will
draw
actually
their dependent.
suck.
So
it can
for
do some more fun
rare,
stuff. I, however, think that Shadow
probably
Meld
just
very
like B
often
tier.
reads, I block 5. If you're hoping to draw Shadow Meld plus like a better block card or multiple block cards, again, we're starting to get into territory of just not very likely to happen. That becomes kind of problematic. Or you just don't want to spend all your energy on all those cards anyways. So it can very often just read not all that
Yeah,
well.
the upgrade
One
on this
extra block,
card is
you can just draw something instead.
insane.
It can do stuff, especially with the
Because
upgrade.
the
and it can
energy
do
you
things
get
if you
is
have a lot of draw,
doubled
for example, and
effectively
can
because you
consistently play
get
well
to
stuff and
spend
you
it
don't
on
have
a
access to footwork or other ways
double
to increase your
block
active blockout,
card.
but it's worth a note that this is sort of more desperation to be able to do that. But yeah, not all that crazy good or anything. Definitely just C tier card, probably
I
similar
don't
to Shadow
think
Step under bullet time for me.
I don't
probably.
think it's
Maybe I'll bump bullet time up.
I
a
don't think
little
it's
bit,
in C
just
tier.
it's
I would put it in
next to
D because the
P-Step,
number
but
is
yeah, not all
very
that great.
large.
Okay, next up, Storm of Steel, 1 energy skill, discard your hand, add one
Holy
chip into your hand for each
garbage.
card. Discard it. Shivs are better now, and so this card got a little bit better. And also, Aeon Glass is giving you fodder in your hand to action
This is
cards,
the
so you have
worst
more
shift
stuff.
card. It's not the
Discard effect
worst
is terrible,
one. There's
and
a
let's pick
there's a
other cards
worse
now.
shift
The
card
Storm
than
of
this
Steel is
one.
slightly up. Usually
Probably the
this is
second
actually
worst
resulting in
shift
more shivs than,
card.
like a Blade Dance or even
Just
Eating
C
Strike,
tier
or just one
probably.
shiv, and 1 energy for 1 shiv is a very bad card. You need a lot for this card to really be all that good. It has some utility like discarding the statuses inside of Act 2 as well that the mites add to your hand, but overall, I think Storm of Steel is still in a pretty bad spot. It's probably not D tier anymore, probably bottom of C for me.
Yeah,
but
bottom
not
of
all
C
that
because
much to talk
shifts are
about here.
better,
It's just,
but
like,
pretty sad.
If you have shift stuff and you have a bunch of extra cards in your hand and you have nothing else to do with them and you don't have any energy to play them, sure, that's about it.
Also, no dab
Okay,
range in
so
this
now we're gonna
game.
step over since it's a starter card. We can talk about Tactician. Skill, Sly, gain 1 energy, costs 3 normally. The upgrade goes to 2 energy, which makes it much better, doubles the effect on it. And
Storm of
obviously
Steel,
you
you
want
with
to be playing
boss
this for
rewards,
free.
it's
I will say that you
pretty
can do it with Sly, or you can do it with something
depressing.
like Pounce, which is cool. Or discounting it to 0 with a potion. This very often is pickable with Acro and one more Sly Activator prepared.
Yeah,
whatever.
Tactician
Scissor Trade makes
Acro,
it 1 energy or 2 energy. with
Reflex
upgraded, draw it
prepared
with the tools. Obviously,
like
it's the
the
problem with Reflex
pairs.
is breaking your first draw to actually get
I
the tools into play
don't
and
really
doesn't
want to
handle it.
speculate on
But
this.
overall, I think just kind of worse than Reflex most of the time. If you brick this, it's obviously just doing nothing in your hand. Same thing as Reflex, but I think the actual ceiling of Reflex is higher. Draw is generally more powerful, I would say, for free than energy gain. You have way more ways on this character, especially to abuse it.
I don't
with
think
combo
it's
potential
that
and a
different,
lot of ways to discard
honestly.
cards
You
for
pick
free
them
with
in
other
pretty
Sly
similar
cards. Tactician,
spots.
think
I'll
is
put
just
them next to
slightly
each
worse than
other.
Reflex in this game still. Same as Spire 1 probably, and probably just like bottom of B, maybe just C tier. Honestly, at this point, we're just picking the discard stuff so much less now. And if you are doing the discard stuff, you're not doing like tight looping decks with it. They're just standalone decent cards. Again, Tools of the Trade, big shout, but yeah, that makes most Sly things pretty okay. Speaking of more Sly things, Untouchable.
This card's OP if you walk
This
into
is
Act
not
3 and there's no
much.
Young
This used to be one of
Glass
the
on
better
your
cards in the
screen.
character. They nerfed the number on it several times. It's gotten so much worse just from the context in the
Yeah,
game.
you
and also
walk into
from
Act
those
3,
direct
you
nerfs.
see no Young
To the point where I
Glass.
think I basically
Holy, I'm
went to
picking
one.
every
This is very
Untouchable.
easily just C tier somewhere in here. Pretty desperation.
yeah, C
Again,
tier
the tools
seems
and all these other
fair.
things prepared accurate. You kind of need multiple discard activators. You kind of need tools, whatever. Something speaking for it. I'm no longer just picking this randomly.
Young Glass, such
Closer
a
to release,
funny
I was
thing,
doing that,
man.
it was working
Just
out pretty
like
much all the time, so
warps
that was when
everything
Acro was common, and
in
Slice Up
this
was
tier
really gross
list.
and broken, and now it's not really the case anymore. So yeah, I think we're just gonna throw this into C tier and move on. Next up,
Haha, the worst
cost,
shift
add 3 shivs in
card.
your hand, reduce this card's cost by 1. This is bad Blade Dance essentially for 2
Holy
plays of it.
shit, this
It
is so
equals Blade
bad.
Dance on the second play and becomes better than Bladeds in the third, most of the time you are never.
This is so
Fights are not going long enough. If
bad.
they are, you probably have not scouted.
I'm putting this in D. It's like actual garbage.
Boss by any means. And hallways, you just never want to play it. It's too expensive. There are way better ways to get shivs. I think this is very clearly just a D tier card now.
Yeah,
It really just doesn't do very much at all. Again, all these D tier cards do get picked sometimes, but it is so much worse.
I picked this thing with the helmet one time. That was pretty cool.
I cannot really see it getting added to the deck very often.
Because you block for 4 too.
Powers. Next up, Abrasive. 3 energy.
Oh, Abrasive. My opinion of Abrasive goes way down.
It costs 0 with this card. I have played raw Abrasive for 3 energy and still had it be very good. And the upgrade is quite solid. You get some more thorns. 1 point of dexterity in this game is very strong.
I think a lot of the times,
and buffs like your dodge and rolls or whatever can stack with other dexterity as well.
My deck just cannot play this.
Abrasive is just a very, very strong card.
Free.
You can play it for free even when you can't play it.
But if you are able to play it for free, it's insane. Obviously,
not irrelevant at all. I think Abrasive is just S tier. This card is
for me. It goes to A tier now.
It does want to be able to be played for free, but I'm gonna throw it somewhere around here next to Piercing Whale probably.
I mean, you can raw play for 3, and it's like not that good
by the time
to
you
do that.
You probably have like 1 or 2 discard things. You can usually make it work, even if it doesn't land in every fight. It's not that.
If I see Abrasive in the boss reward, I pick it pretty often. But if there's something like actual premium, like
because like the thorns kill them way earlier or something,
the Adrenaline, the After Image, whatever, I don't really want the Abrasive.
Okay, Accelerate, 1 energy, power, poison is triggered 1 additional time. This is changed to uncommon on the beta branch currently.
Yeah, it's uncommon.
This card was not really all that deserving of a rare, and I think poison space, like synergy space, needed.
This card's good if you can apply poison.
Like the Catalyst, Aspire 1. I think a lot of people compare this to Catalyst. I do not think that is really what it's doing.
Not sure
turning the poison number on the enemy to be bigger is one thing. Triggering it multiple times.
Not just streams by itself isn't enough.
Every time it gets triggered.
So you need like noxious streams, like one more thing.
This is not actually going to be doing that much damage. You kind of
need to accelerate
a lot of poison with fumes and like one other poison card is good. With just fumes, it's not. I think Accelerants.
What the hell? This guy is just copying what I'm saying.
Or something you need a lot of poison application, which most of the cards just don't apply that much that you're going to be playing. And if you're only like relying on 1 poison card to deal damage, then you probably don't want Accelerants. So a bit weird. In the dedicated deck,
also I think in the burst,
poison, I can definitely see it, and it becomes good.
In the burst evaluation,
an actual use case, and especially
he missed the fact that bursting a poison card is actually quite strong.
And move on. Okay, next up, accuracy. 1 energy,
S tier. Okay, go next.
Additional damage. This card is really, really good. I think with Knife Trap especially.
Dude, I pick accuracy for 1 with no shifts.
Powers that is really important, but does work really well with accuracy. And
I pick accuracy for 1 with no shifts. S tier, go next.
Accuracy get in. It just picked even without shivs in the deck very often. It's so worth having. It's just a way to open all the shiv stuff as being super good that it just gets picked blind with nothing. Very easily S tier for me. I think accuracy has had such a huge glow up here, and shivs have just gotten so good that it needs to be there.
Oh, the best rare card on the class.
This is basically super footwork. Can be worse in footwork in some situations.
Yeah, the best rare card on the class. Holy crap! Actually, it can be gimped by the Queen of Doom. But Silent doesn't care about Queen. I play 1 Piercing Whale, deal 0 damage anyways.
This is one of the best ones, if not the best one. I think this is very easily top of S tier here. Maybe not like the absolute best card over Adrenaline.
I think I would pick it over Adrenaline.
It's probably second for me currently with what we have listed here. Very important.
Yeah, pick it over Adrenaline. I pick it over Amid sometimes, honestly. Amid doesn't solve your output. After Image does.
Works with so many things.
Just depends on what you have, really.
So good. Next up, Envenom. 2 energy. Whenever an attack deals unblocked damage,
garbage.
1 poison. Envenom is extremely slow and expensive. And unfortunately, without Sly to like cheat it into play, and especially without the upgrade reducing its energy cost, now it just increases the amount of poison. I think Silent has a hard time playing this. Like, we did get energy tools
garbage.
Now, but it's a lot harder to put this into play than if it just comes randomly and costs 1. If you have Snecko Skull, like
it used to work with Outbreak. Like every time you play a card with Envenom, it triggers Outbreak. Now it doesn't work anymore.
The main way of scaling shifts is just doing accuracy stuff. If you don't see that stuff and you need to ship artifact from the boss or something, sure, it's kind of just worse accuracy for the most part. I think the main way that you're actually doing unblocked attack damage is just shivs now, and so when you compare it to the other shiv powers, this is expensive and just not all that impactful in general. I think it's like D tier probably.
Yeah, D tier is fair,
but yeah, extremely infrequent. Okay. Phantom Knives, 2 costs.
Yeah, this is okay.
Into your hand.
If you need AoE.
I think this you can sort of read as Blade Dance and single target fights, obviously, but Blade Dance plus, and that's okay as is. I don't think you really need to upgrade. It just goes to 5 shivs here.
Why would you upgrade this ever?
And still do a lot.
Like if you upgrade Phantom Knives, you often discard the additional shiv, which is pretty funny.
And I think that this is an okay option. It's overcosted and not renewable shivs for the most part. Like I would be kind of happier, I think, if this just said 0 energy or 1 energy and made no shivs and just had the effects written on it. But the fact that it does have this effect written on it means it's standalone and you can just pick it even without stuff. So if you see it early game, you can just pick this and it just says 2 energy, deal 16 AoE with higher upsides, right? So
I mean, it's obviously better than the dagger spray and whatever garbage, but it's like not that great. Just like B.
AoE, but it can kill.
Yeah, probably just B for me.
When the game changes a bit more and maybe Act 4 has an AoE fight or Act 3 becomes harder or something, then I could see this. Right now, I don't feel like I'm really struggling in Act 3 with AoE encounters. I'm kind of just like bursting down one of the guys with my shivs.
Okay, so why is freaking dagger spray B tier, dude? What are you even saying?
I think I'm just gonna move this into like B tier probably. I think
what are you saying?
Dagger spray for obvious reasons, just like bigger number and better synergies. probably close to the top of the pizza, right?
Holy, Jason Dagger Spray will be the new meme.
Next, footwork.
S
energy,
tier. Okay, go
power,
next.
gain 2 dexterity. Dexterity is incredibly strong in this game. I don't think anyone needs to
tier.
explain that. Block is very good. And this is one of the main ways that you can actually stabilize fights. If you see this early, it trivializes most of the game.
Last time I had 5 footworks, I won very easily.
Block more than playing like 3 defense.
Then the previous time I had 5 footworks, I won very easily.
If you have no dexterity, your defense start blocking for 3. If you have footwork plus, your defense will block for 6. Which is literally double value, and quite a few
Alright, I mean.
So I think footwork overall is still just easily S tier. It's not quite as good as After Image, but we're gonna put this pretty high up, I will say.
Well, that takes footwork above Hunt. Okay, maybe that's a little too degenerate.
Instead of you turn, add 1 chip into your hand.
Infinite Blades.
I think basically 2 card damage solve.
Probably the best shift card.
Damage per turn, but if you see that in the early game, it's incredibly good. Even with just accuracy, Infinite Blades is good. Without accuracy,
yeah, I think Infinite Blade is probably the best shift card.
Infinite Blades, all the things I just mentioned, even like Serpent Form, whatever. There's a lot of things that just make this much better.
Because without support, it exhausts.
Can be really good with potential for massive synergies, and again, makes progress in the fight without spending energy after the turn you play it. So you can just focus entirely on blocking.
For me, probably S tier.
It's just incredible in this game. I think I'm putting this very close to Acro, I would say. Generally, it just
it goes up. Yeah, okay.
Which is the point where if you have a critical mass of shivs and you're drawing shivs every turn, you probably need it. But instead of early game and even later in the run, can be completely run warping. It's funny how much of a glow up this had since Spire 1. It was already going through a bit of revolution in Spire 1, but yeah, just got so much better in this game.
Infinite Blades was good in Spire 1.
Whenever you play a skill against Sly, this is so slow. Really expensive to put in play.
Oh, Master Planner, D tier, go next.
At least on this character. There's not enough like high impact skills that I care about cheating
This is so bad.
And Master Planner is very often a complete brick. I think this thing is just easily one of the worst cards in the character. Basically doing nothing.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't really understand this card.
2 energy, do nothing.
It would be good. I think it just very often just is not. Maybe I'll have a run with it where it pops off, but I have not had a run yet where it has felt good at all. Next up, Noxious Fumes. 1 energy.
Alright, here's my hot take.
The upgrade is extremely important.
Infinite Blades is better than Noxious Fumes.
For me. Fumes is right up there with accuracy in terms of impact.
So I will swap. I will actually swap Fumes and Infinite Blades here.
It will kill basically every fight in the games with very little help. Obviously, you cannot do literally nothing but play Fumes, but Fumes is getting you most of the way there. So trust this card, just upgrade it, believe in it. It's going to do stuff. It solves so many fights and just provides so much damage in the bosses and artifact strip and whatnot that it's something I'm basically always looking for unless all my damage is already solved.
So here's the thing, yeah?
Okay, Outbreak.
Okay, so obviously, Fuma is Fuma and it's broken.
It now reads, and it's rare. 3 energy, apply 9
However,
poison triggers immediately. This is a very recent change, and I have not.
Fuma minus.
The way it reads to me,
it's actually kind of slow.
Game, and then in the end game, becomes sort of a damage.
So you do want to upgrade the Fuma.
Reads 18 damage with no synergies. You kind of get your immediate.
So in that sense, I will put Infinite Blades above Fuma. Also, with the shift package already,
you play this. You'll do like
you just don't need the Fuma ever. You do enough
Obviously,
damage.
If you have that much poison, the fight's probably pretty 1, right? But that's just an example. This gets better.
Outbreak is like the 3 energy poison skill.
Doing 18 damage AoE.
It's
and then also doing damage
another bullet time target, right?
Good to me. This can solve a lot. I think the main thing is that
it's another bullet time target.
Aside from just play Outbreak, so
also like
but
it's
when you have a card that you need to pay a lot of energy for like
card. It triggers Accelerant.
Like these stabilizing or solving something,
which is pretty fun.
I think the upgrade's very important on it. The damage number goes up. That in itself is
also
really
a ridiculous discovery target.
When you use your whole turn, you want it to kill something, and it's not dead weight in the end game. Essentially, it's a finisher card, and even just a poison starter card can be fine if you can.
But yeah,
somehow
playing this for 3 feels bad. I picked it a couple times.
Just like a B tier card.
Yeah, B tier
probably
feels.
Wants to be in early game and needs to be seen relatively soon, but also can be used in decks with dedicated poison damage, and that's pretty nice.
But if you can cheat it out, it's crazy
because of how expensive it is. But I think this is a much better card than it was previously. Okay, next up, Phantom Blade. Broken. Retain. First shiv you play each turn deals 9 additional damage. This is one of those shiv powers that makes the cards, like the shiv card, just so much better. And it's something worth speculating on even with no shivs very often.
Accuracy is better, but
if you have a Blade Dance and you have
this is still pretty good.
Now instead of playing your whole Blade Dance in 1 turn, you can now just play 1 shiv a turn and have 3 turns of damage cover for Phantom Blades. And so Blade Dance gets a lot more useful with Phantom Blades.
Probably A tier.
Retaining the shivs is also just kind of a good effect in general.
Yeah, probably a little worse than the accuracy.
Doing more, you can hold them to play with ninja relics like the Shuriken and the Kunai
because this thing doesn't actually solve your endgame damage. Accuracy does. Accuracy plays so well with Night Trap. This is a little awkward.
This card gets better with player skill by quite a bit. But even
this is stronger early and worse later.
Doing a lot of damage, and that's
but the thing is, accuracy isn't even bad early. So I think accuracy,
if you ignore the retain effect altogether,
is quite a bit better.
So exceptionally good. I don't think it's
the retain thing is relevant.
To me, this is like easily.
I do like the retain effect.
It's funny how much better these shiv powers have gotten, but I'm gonna throw like sort of close to the bottom of S tier here.
Yep, maybe bottom of S. Sure.
Okay. Next up, Serpent Form. Whenever you play a card, deal 4 damage to a random enemy.
Link of video. Oh, chatter can link you.
This
Thank
upgrade is
you.
pretty significant. It goes to 6 damage. This card is pretty just like difficult to play. And again, it's sort of bad accuracy,
Serpent
like, the way
form
that you're scaling a
probably
lot of
he's
damage
gonna
very
he's
often
gonna
with flagship
underrate
cards and
Serpent
scaling them.
form.
This is just really expensive
If you
to
put
do
it in
that,
C,
right?
I think
it
this
can do stuff in decks that are not
is
doing that. And
solid.
I definitely pick Serpent forms going into Anglass where I'm desperate for damage, but most of the time I don't want this in my deck, like especially early game. If you need to kill a boss, it's gonna help do that. It's gonna be a really good dupe pot target. I've definitely duped Serpent form into the boss to sort of scale my damage and solve things. It's just a high impact draw when you get it, but playing it is obviously very costly. I think this is better than the last time we made a tier list. Probably just like top of C tier or something. It has a niche as a boss killer, but again, very costly. And
I think I'm happier to pick Serpent form over Snake Bite, which is crazy to say.
This is a multiplayer card, but it's a very strong one. It says whenever another player attacks an enemy game, 1 block, Sly. It costs 2.
So
this
Silent has
goes to
this
2 block
problem,
per attack
right?
Other players do, and it's essentially just like multiplayer after image.
Sometimes you don't find damage cards in Act 1, then you cannot kill elites.
If your teammate is not attacking very frequently, but you'll know. I would say it's probably an A or an S tier card, depending, but obviously not putting it on here
because Silent base deck doesn't do damage.
Next up, Speed
Then here's the Serpent form, then suddenly every elite is dead.
This card is horrendous.
Also, Phantom is dead. Every Act 1 boss is dead. It's a very clean solve.
Play like Acro and things like that. And Acro
no, you don't even need to upgrade it. You just
with, like, Count Gamble or
don't need to upgrade it. You can do something else after.
This card is just not very good.
So for that alone, I value it quite a bit.
There's just better ways to scale damage. Basically, never getting in the
deck.
But
yeah, ideally you don't want it, obviously.
Probably better than Master Planner, but pretty horrendous. Okay, next up, Tools of Trade, 1 energy, power.
Broken S tier, go next.
Card. The upgrade's incredibly good, goes to 0 energy, and enables all those Sly packages. I don't feel like I need to elaborate because we already did mention on all the cards that this is making really strong now. I'm just going to throw this straight into S tier. Drawing 1 extra card a turn is exceptionally good, and not having to pay energy to do that every turn, really good. Not even having to pay energy to deploy the power in the first place, also really good. I think that's just getting up there in the holy trinity of silent rare powers, but exceptionally broken. The next one in a second here. Okay, next up we have tracking. 2 energy power. We can always take double damage from attacks on beta branch.
Not double, it's 1.5 now.
Less than that. So tracking was probably the most broken card in the entire game, or one of them, and still scales shivs really well. I think if you need a physical damage boost, this is still a very worthwhile card to pick up.
Probably A tier card for me.
It is obviously not as instantly run winning as it used to be, but it really just says the enemies have permanent vuln if they have weakness on it. And that's a very powerful effect. So I think this is still S tier. It's not quite as good as it used to be. Like
I don't think it's S tier. It's too expensive. It's like extremely difficult to play.
It's rewarding you for doing something you already wanted to do, which is have weakness, right? And also, so when you have cards like that, you don't have to go out of your way to make them good.
There are gonna be decks where you just cannot keep perma weak.
Okay,
it's not like free effect.
At the end of your turn, retain up to 1 card. On beta branch, this has been massively reworked. This now costs 2.
Mid. Alright, S tier, go next.
Pyramid is debatably the best boss rush in the game. It's definitely up there if it's not the best. Maybe number 2 now. We just did a Spirecast episode about this, so I guess you can watch that and decide for yourself how you feel about it. But yeah, Wall-Eyed Plan's just ridiculous card. It was 1 energy go to 0, and they just nerfed it recently, and that was obviously way too strong. I think it's still
here's my
strong.
hot
Probably one of the
take.
strongest cards in the character. It's
Here
worth
is
playing
my hot
energy,
take.
but it's not something you can slam on sight. And I think that's something to be said. But getting Pyramid on this character just trivializes basically
After image is better than a mid in a lot of decks. Being able to
play your piercing well on the correct turn, being able to play your energy on the turn.
Alright, that's my hot take.
Etc. For such a combo heavy character, Wall-Eyed Plans has always and probably will
after image is like broken,
like
holy crap.
This effect is
that thing is not okay.
Very, very easily one of the best cards in the character. It's Pyramid. I don't know what else there is to say. We could even say it's the best card, but I think this is fine leaving as is. It is a rare card now, so it's just a little bit harder to find. For obvious reasons, the effect has gotten stronger and more costly, but it is, bumped up to a rare to compensate for that.
Amid is hard to play. No, Amid is insane.
Other ways to fix draw consistency is
if Amid is not the best card on the character, it's the second best card on the character.
Finally, we have Wraith Form, which is again not a card I'm going to include in here, but I'll briefly talk about it. It says 3 energy, power gain 2 intangible at the start of your turn.
Wraith Form, I mean,
is an ancient relic.
The opportunity cost is a ancient relic.
Opportunity cost. I don't think it's like super exceptional in this game, but Wraith Form is Wraith Form. You can Nightmare this.
You
can dupot it.
Okay, Nightmare Wraith Form doesn't work. It never happens. Let's be real here.
Is really, really powerful, but the opportunity cost I think is a little bit too steep. Yeah, we don't have to talk about a ton, but still a good card, just not one of the best. Okay,
like B tier.
That is everything for Silent now.
Yeah, probably like a
Overall,
B tier ancient bonus.
Character way more interesting. The last couple of rounds of patches have mostly been buffs, but I do like the design space choices they're doing with like poison and trying to experiment with some new things and make it a little bit more interesting. I think overall that has made the character more interesting. Until Act 4 is out, we'll just have to see how.
Yeah, so it's good for the hallways.
Right now, it feels very much like you're just doing shiv stuff. Act 4 is going to be a while, so I can't imagine that's going to change unless they massively nerf a lot of things or buff other things or whatever. But shivs just really feel like such an easy way to bridge into damage and to also scale that damage into the end game. And Aeon Glass really doesn't punish it enough for how much damage you can really be doing with them. So at least for now, that feels like the dominant way of dealing damage. And the support cards and packages around Silent have just kind of gotten better. You've gotten better access to AoE. Most of your card quality has just gone up with a lot of these changes. The character overall feels pretty strong to me. As do all the characters,
I think I will put tracking A tier now. It's kind of steep.
I did this offline. Let me know how you feel about this compared to the ones I've done on stream. I think I yapped for a bit longer.
Yeah, the cost is a little bit steep. Actually, we can look at the final tier list. It's on Mobalytics. Let me go find it. Let's blow it up. That's Regent. Yeah, I think like for me, Prepare goes down 1 tier, Sidestep goes down 1 tier, Fume goes down 1 tier, Abrasive goes down 1 tier, Tracking goes down 1 tier, Prepare goes down 1 tier, the Infinite Blades goes up, Flechette goes down, Predator goes down, Escape Plan goes down, Blade Dance goes down, Ping Pong goes down, Snakebite Dagger Spray goes down, Dash go up, Serpent Form go up, probably Sucker Punch go up. Weakness keyword just like so good, even though it's the worst weakness keyword. Accelerant go up. Burst and Shadow Mail probably goes up, but Shadow Mail really needs an upgrade. Like, I'll upgrade it. Pretty sad, so maybe not. Hand Trick go up. Unfortunately, it's better than the other garbage here. Cloak and Dagger. I mean, the first copy is very easy to pick, right? Because it also blocks. You don't want too many. You don't want too many of this though. No, Hand Trick is not B tier though. I'll just put it in C. Yeah, that's my thought. Maybe Burst can go up, maybe not. A little too drawer dependent. It's kind of funny. Predator for a common card, it's pretty crazy, right? The fact that it's common. It's a very strong card if it's common. But compared to some of the other things here, it's not as good. So I put it in B. A also kinda wants an upgrade. Yeah, 2 energy 15 still just bad rate for attack. Envenom still D. Venom sucks. I mean, it's really bad. Way too slow. 2 energy. Finale in C tier because Finale either it's like worthless garbage or it wins you the run. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of rank these kind of things. As opposed to the stuff down here, which is just worthless garbage and doesn't win you the run. Right, so it's a bit of a difference here. I guess my most controversial opinion is swapping Fuma and Infinite Blade, probably. All right, enough reacting.